When I first saw this opening, I knew it was right for me. I've got tons of experience. I've got all the skills they're looking for.
If you look at my resume, I've got everything they're looking for. I mean, I've held similar jobs like this in the past. I'm extremely driven. I really think this is going to work out.
I've got a BA in marketing, which the posting said was recommended, so I think that'll bode really well for me. I've had plenty of team experience, and I think that would stand out. Not to mention the fact that I'm great with
web design and HTML, and pretty proficient with Excel and PowerPoint. Also, I think the culture is
very me, you know? I think I'd fit in well with the other employees. I also think I had a great
resume and cover letter. I think as soon as they interview me, they'll see I'm the perfect candidate.
As of this video's release, Swenson Digital had extended a job offer to an applicant who happens to be a friend of the boss's son.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Well, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live network with Nate and Charlie from Nashville, Tennessee.
This is the most anti-death podcast you're going to run across.
And this is even worse than death. This was like murderous, barbaric, torturous, terrible death for women and children and the elderly and all kinds of people that happened in Israel by the hands of Hamas over the weekend. If you've been online at all or watched the news at all, then you know just as much as we do about this thing. I was scrolling through the news stations this morning, like Fox and CNN and BBC and all the other stuff. And of course, it's just wall to wall. That's what everyone's talking about, as you would assume they would be talking about right now. According to, this was a thing from Reason this morning. They say death toll passes 1,100. Now, let me see if they're talking about just in Israel or if I think they're counting Gaza also, so Palestinians also. And I just said Palestinians. Now, some things that you read might say, well, there is no such thing as a Palestinian because it doesn't exist. Well, if you ask some people, there's no such thing as an Israel. It doesn't exist either. It's very complicated. All right. And I posted about it over the weekend, saying humbly, probably more humble than anyone else I saw posting about this over the weekend. But you guys let me know. I doubt it, that I had no idea. I had no clue what's going on because I know nothing about the history of Israel and Palestine. I don't know what it is. I didn't even know that Israel wasn't even officially a state until 1948.
Yeah, the only thing we do know is that this piece of dirt has been fought over for thousands of years.
And what's
hard is it, like, and I'm not being facetious here, it gets lost in translation.
It does.
It
also matters what year you pick. Now, we've talked about this before, I think when we were maybe even talking about Ukraine and maybe even some other areas of the world. What matters when you talk about these land disputes is what year you decide was the right year, when everything was correct and everyone had the land that they were supposed to have. And what gets really confusing is we select different years for different countries all around the globe, because honestly, if we say it's Israel, then we're either starting history at 1948 or we're starting history at like 700 BC, something like that. And we're skipping everything else that happened in between there when Israel lost the land, and it was kind of Palestina, I think is what we're gonna see in some of the things we'll read. And you get a chunk of like 2,000 years there where it was Arab territory. It wasn't Israel. And so what matters is, does your history start at 1948? Does it start at 700 BC? Does it start in 1920? Was that the proper time in history? And then if you're looking at Israel and they say, well, it's 700 BC, clearly that's the right thing.
Of course, Americans want to be like, well, what did the world look like in 1776?
Yeah.
We'll just go back to that.
Right there. But that's not what you want to do for Israel.
Like, does America belong to Americans?
And that's what I'm saying. If you go back to 700 BC, then we got to give it all back to the Native Americans, whoever those people are.
And those tribes were fighting with each other.
Probably not even the ones that we ran out in the 1800s or 14, 15, 16, 17, 1800s.
Started in 1619. We all know that. You know.
Well, 1492, when Columbus is Columbus Day, by the way.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, / Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah.
When Columbus
/
came,
murderous slaver.
When Columbus came here and murdered everyone in 1492, I guess, is when he sailed the ocean blue, as we all know. Is that when history started? I'm not sure. And like I said, you pick different times for each country. It just whatever you decided was right. Is it Ukraine? Well, I don't know if you think Israel should be returned to. You think it's Israel? Well, or is Ukraine Mother Russia? Or do you think Israel is Palestine? Is Ukraine Mother Russia? Which one is it? Who's rightfully got the land? I don't know. You see how confusing this is?
I mean, this is what DeSantis's permitless carry leads to. You know?
Exactly.
Over land dispute.
I know.
With their neighbors. I can't help but make jokes. It's not funny.
It's not funny at all.
But you have to make jokes because what else are you going to do? You know? What can you do during this time? We're against war.
It's called gallows humor. So when you get into this really, really terrible situation, what are you going to do? We could cry.
All I could think about was the neighbors getting in a gun dispute. Yeah. These are just really big guns.
It's what it
is. These are a
just
lot bigger guns.
A neighborly dispute right now.
Do you think Hamas flashed his permit? Before?
No, they didn't need permits.
That's right. It's permitless carry over there in the Middle East. Yeah. That's what this kind of stuff leads to.
I got you. There was just a couple terrible things that, of course, everyone has seen. There was a music festival going on in Israel. I think they're saying that 260 people that were killed at a rave there-ish, something like that. Then you've got videos of people going around getting snatched up, getting murdered, elderly people getting murdered. You got viral videos of just terrible, awful things. I try to not ever actually see pictures of dead bodies and real violence and stuff like that, but you kind of couldn't avoid it if you scrolled through X over the weekend. And so I'm sure everyone saw the same things I did. It's absolutely terrible. And there's even if we have a discussion and it turns out that there should actually be a two-state solution, as they call it, where there's an Israel and a Palestine, or, okay, I kind of get why Palestinian people are so upset because the UN came in 1947, 48 and just said, oh yeah, you guys move over, these people coming in, we're going to make this Israel right here. Okay, I can understand why the people who have also been there for generations, according to them, 1,000 years, they've been there. I'm sure Israel had it before that, but these people have been here for 1,000 years. And now people are coming in and saying, nope, you guys move. You guys get out of here. We're going to make this Israel. We are UN. We are the people who decide what people live where.
It's really a religious dispute, mainly.
It is.
Right?
It's it's holy ground, allegedly, for both of them. Mm-hmm. So, but I guess the Israeli, the holy ground would go back further than the Arab holy ground. We've passed my expertise at this point.
Yeah.
I just burned out all of my expertise in the first 9 minutes of the show. Yeah. So,
well, they found biblical artifacts all over Israel and Turkey.
I mean, listen, you listen to the Christmas songs, it says Israel in there. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. That must have been really awkward singing those songs before 1948. I bet. Are those songs newer ones that we sing?
Yeah. All right. Give us a bit of history here from these pundits.
So I think this is important because as we talk online with people, you get both sides a lot. Like, this is Israel's right to defend itself, and of course everyone's history. If you're saying this clear, which you do have a right to defend yourself. Mm-hmm. What Hamas did here is absolutely terrible, and I hope every single one of them gets what's coming to them. I absolutely do, but I don't want other innocent people to die in the process. And then we also know, as Americans, that when you kill other innocent people in the process, you just further this forever war. You create more Hamas at that time.
Yeah.
So
and the thing is too, so I can say as a Christian, like, I do believe that the Jews, the people of Israel, Israelites are the actual original children of God. Now, of course, that expands now to Gentiles. But so I do think that, but I don't want to let that bias my opinion, thinking that Israel has a right to go and bomb everyone and kill everyone. I think we have to approach this objectively, because if you look at the gospel of Jesus, I don't think I didn't read, in Matthew where he says, drop bombs to make sure that your brothers and sisters you're trying to bring to me, feel the love.
I think technically when dealing with Israel, you have to base it on Old Testament God.
Well,
is the thing,
But I think that's the disconnect, though.
Yeah.
Because there is a new covenant.
I know. But that kind of flies in the face of this whole Israel thing, I mean, they killed our Lord,
Yeah.
The Jews.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, let's go through a little bit of the history. This stuff is fairly important, I believe.
Copperhead you got to join the Fed Haters Club. All right. Join gml.com. Actually, don't do it, because you don't. Yeah. I don't want you to see this kind of stuff, actually. Copperhead says, Jesus said those with Riz can drop bombs.
I don't know what Riz is.
Really? You don't know the Gen Z? Have you seen the Gen Z Bible?
I haven't heard this one. No.
Have you seen the Gen Z Bible stories?
No.
Oh my
Riz?
God, it's so good.
Charisma. Okay.
Yeah.
Game.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right.
It's got that Riz.
Israel.
He's a Rizinator.
Let's do a little history lesson, because as I said on X, I don't know anything about the history of this area. And I happened to find one place that went back past the year 1880. Because if you look up Israel and Palestine conflict, it all starts in like the late 1800s, according to everything that you read. You Washington Post, New York Times, you go anywhere and read about this, it starts in the late 1800s. Well, there was in fact time before that. So you have to ask, well, what about before that? Because those people were descendants of people that were before them. And so what were they dealing with at this time? And you trace that all the way back, and you get down to the single cell organism, in the lake or wherever it was.
Right.
And so I think it's their fault.
4 billion years ago.
So Israel, which people were having a hard time spelling also over the weekend. It was trending in 2 different spellings.
Israel.
Yes. First appears near the end of the 13th century BC within the Egyptian. This is a serious question. Do Jews use BC as a timekeeping mechanism?
I guess
they believe Christ existed. They just didn't.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because they know they killed him.
There's another meaning for BC. It doesn't mean just before Christ.
Okay. I've always heard BC.
Yeah.
I've always heard before Christ. I'm honestly just asking dumb questions right now, and I'm humbling myself before the audience at the moment. I'm wondering the answers to these questions. Let's see. Referring apparently to the people rather than a place inhabiting what was then Canaan. A few centuries later in that region, we find 2 sister kingdoms, Israel and Judah, which is the origin of the term Jew. According to the Bible, there had first been a monarchy comprising both, apparently also called Israel. So that's Israel and Judah, a monarchy comprising both called Israel. At about 722 BC, the kingdom of Israel was conquered by the Neo-Assyrian Empire, centered in what's now Iraq. As an ancient geographic term, Israel was no more. And this is 722 BC, conquered by what is now Iraq. Israel was. Judah alone, so it was Israel and Judah. Then Israel is conquered in 722 BC. Less than a century and a half later, Judah was overthrown. Its capital, Jerusalem, I've heard that word before, was sacked, like Dak Prescott last night several times. The Jewish temple destroyed, and many of Judah's inhabitants were exiled to Babylonia. I've heard some of these words in the past. Following the exile's end, a little under 50 years later, the territory of the former kingdom of Judah served as the heart of Judaism for almost 7 centuries, although the rebuilt temple was again destroyed in AD 70 by the Romans. I think that's in the Bible somewhere, right? Temple getting destroyed? I'm not sure. I've heard about that temple before. Palestine, this is AD 135. So still quite a long time ago, close to 1900 years ago or so, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Something like that,
almost
close to. It's
2,000 years ago.
This is Palestine. Following a failed Jewish revolt, Roman Emperor, see now this is just retaliation for this Jewish revolt. Roman Emperor Hadrian expelled the Jews from Jerusalem and decreed that the city and surrounding territory be part of a larger entity called Syria Palestina. Palestina took its name from the coastal territory of the ancient Philistines, enemies of the Israelites. Okay, so this is in 135. The Jews are pushed out and they call this place Syria Palestina. So this is almost 2,000 years ago. All right. Now, before we go further past this, what we say is that in 1948, when Israel became its own state, we were rightfully restoring this land back to pre-135 AD, so almost 2,000 years before that, essentially.
Well, but it was Judah.
Yeah, Judah then, yes. The Israel part was conquered, what was that, 722 BC, so even further back in time. Good Lord. And yes, this was because of the Holocaust. Jews were looking for a place to go. And also the Holocaust helped the movement, I believe it was called the Zionist movement, for this whole thing to take place because people felt bad. It was kind of a convenient PR time for creating your own Jewish state.
Yeah.
I don't mean any of this as like a joking matter. Just laying it down right now. Zionism and British control. In the second half of the 19th century, longstanding yearning of the Jews to return to the territory of their ancestors culminated in the nationalistic movement called Zionism. The Zionist cause was driven by steeply rising hatred towards Jews in Europe and Russia. Immigrating Jews encountered a predominantly Arab populace who also considered it their ancestral homeland. So, arriving Jews encountered a predominantly Arab populace who also considered it to be their ancestral homeland. How long do your people need to be in a place before you call it your ancestral homeland? Because, like, my family has been in a little town in Illinois since, like, I don't know, 1895 or something like that.
BC?
AD. 1895. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's my ancestral homeland right there.
What about Japan?
Maybe Japan too. I don't know. And plus, why do people care so much about it? Like, you ever think about where your people are from 1,000 years before you?
No.
I do.
Although I will say, so part of me thinks this is a little different only in the aspect of why are people willing to go to war over this land?
Because it's in the Bible.
Well, in the Quran as well.
Yeah, I know. It's in the religious what I'm saying is, why do people like say if you were to poll America?
But what motivates you? But what motivates you beyond just reading it in a book, right? There's got to be there has to be something, and this is what I like how Jordan Peterson talks about things. Like, it doesn't matter what people say. How do they act? Like, what are they actually doing? What actions are they taking? And this war has really been going on for thousands of years, right? And the live group is saying, stupid sky gods.
Someone said, my family is from Germany and I'm still upset about how World War II went.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess maybe it's our white privilege where I don't think about things like that. Like your ancestral home. I'm not even talking about in the context of this, but there's a lot of people who just talk about the past all the time. You watch a TV show and there's like a Native American, you go on the on the reservation. They're all talking about all these things that happened like 200 years ago. And I'm like, seriously, get over it.
Yeah.
Like, it's now, now.
And somebody said in the live group as well that this is why you forgive your enemies or you let vengeance destroy you. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what it's what the Bible talks about. I think it's even what the Quran talks about. That if you harbor bitterness and resentment and vengeance, it's going to destroy you and the people that you love.
Yeah.
We have to come to a place where we can all get along, despite the differences. But there is something, I feel like it has to be deeper at a spiritual level for sure. Otherwise, these people wouldn't be willing to put their lives on the line or other people's lives on the line and actually go to war over this sand. It's very sandy over there.
It's quite
dusty,
quite a bit.
Just look at the pictures.
So what we're just a little bit more here. At that time, the land comprised 3 administrative regions of the Ottoman Empire, none of which was called Palestine. In 1917, the land came under British rule. In 1923, Mandatory Palestine, terrible name for a place, which also included the current state of Jordan, was created. Its Arab inhabitants saw themselves primarily not as Palestinians in the sense of a nation, but instead as Arabs living in Palestine. Ultimately, the Zionist project succeeded because of the global horror in response to the Holocaust. In 1947, the UN General Assembly passed Resolution 181, partitioning the land into independent Arab and Jewish states. The resolutions met immediate Arab rejection. Palestinian militias attacked Jewish settlements. Now, at this time, remember, when they decide to partition out this place called Israel specifically, you are taking land from people who have been there and their families have been there for thousands of years at this time. I'm not trying to make excuses for anything that's ever happened. I just want to actually understand what happened here and why we look at it differently, or why some people choose to look at it differently. Like why?
Like, for instance, like I bought this house and I have a little piece of land here. If somebody came in and said, oh, we got to give this back to somebody else, I'll be like, well, why? Like, I bought, this is my property now.
Yeah.
I bought this. Blood, sweat, and do you know how much work went in to buying this thing? You know? And because someone else screwed up before me, why do I have to suffer the consequences of that?
And so I start making...
So I understand. I completely understand.
Absolutely. I start making all these comparisons to like the Native Americans in America. But then I'm like, okay, well, how far back do you go? Back to our original problem. Because before the Arabs were there, it was Israel again. And, you know, if you go back far enough in history. So how far back in history do you choose? Who was there before them? I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, humans are a cancer on the planet. We should get rid of everyone and to give it back to the animals.
That's it. Just give it back. And we might be doing that
the only way
after the all the nukes, you know, after all the nukes start dropping, because this is starting to look pretty bad. I mean, just imagine if all of a sudden,
I mean, look at who's there. We have a few countries at war now, or, you know, territories, whatever. At World War III, it's on the horizon.
Some of the accusations have been, as usual, that Iran is helping Hamas in Palestine, like trying to fight Israel, which is bad. And once again, if you use the
obviously America's sending their biggest ship over there. I guarantee the SEALs have been there for a couple weeks already.
If you look at the comparison again, like with Native Americans, imagine Canada were helping these Native American tribes on the res up there to retake America, and you look out the window and you see these roving bands of Native Americans on horses shooting Canadian bows and arrows at all of our cars and stuff like that. And you just look out there and you realize this wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Canada. So at one point, you know, that we decide that we're going to fight Canada instead.
I feel like you can blame Canada for a lot of things.
You definitely can.
All right, coming up, we're going to keep talking about this Israel-Palestine conflict on Liberty at Night.
It's the Onion Radio News. Raccoon leaders call for the loosening of garbage can lids. This is Doyle Redland reporting. In a 4 a.m. speech at the group's annual Washington, D.C. convention this morning, North American Raccoon Federation President Bristletail called upon homeowners to loosen the lids of their garbage cans, providing the ring-tailed mammals with greater access to discarded food scraps during nocturnal scavenging.
Every time you seal a standard 30-gallon garbage can, as many as 6 raccoons are forced to go without their necessary daily supply of congealed baked beans, rancid cottage cheese chunks, and moldy cantaloupe rinds.
The 26-pound varmint closed his speech with a stern warning that without raccoons, possums could take over the world. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden says the United States has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid an escalating crisis in the Middle East. Speaking on Tuesday afternoon, he confirmed that 14 Americans were killed by Hamas militants on Saturday. He said that attack was a stomach-churning, sickening atrocity on an appalling scale. FSN's Benji Hire reports from Washington.
Joe Biden's message was crystal clear.
We stand with Israel.
In condemning the horrors unleashed over the weekend, the president vowed to support the US's ally as it retaliates against Hamas in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza, where already hundreds have died. The administration is offering hostage rescue support, says it'll replenish Israel's missile defense system, and is ready to move additional assets, calling on Congress to take urgent action to fund such measures. And to any actor or nation thinking about exploiting this rapidly evolving situation for their own advantage, he had for them just a single word: don't.
Meanwhile, families of Americans missing in Israel are piling pressure on the Biden administration to take action to rescue their loved ones. The White House says 20 or more Americans are missing, as FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House is already conceding President Biden faces a hostage crisis in Gaza. Now he's facing public pressure from the families of missing Americans who held a press conference in Tel Aviv. Nahar Netta's mother is among the presumed Hamas captives.
All we ask from the Biden administration and the Secretary of State, Blinken, is to act to the immediate release of all hostages.
The mother of another missing American described the last text messages she received from her son, who was attending a music festival attacked by Hamas on Saturday.
Israel has spent the day dealing with airstrikes, with rocket attacks coming from Gaza. The Israeli government, though, says it has secured the border. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv says there's continued fears that Israel is preparing for a possible ground invasion.
Benjamin Netanyahu says that Hamas will have nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Right now, there are tens of thousands of troops gathering on the Gaza border, with military analysts saying this could be ahead of a potential ground operation, something that hasn't been seen since the 2014 Gaza war. We know there are tens of thousands of troops there. More than 300,000 reservists have been called up, which is absolutely unprecedented here in Israel.
In other news, Russia has lost a vote to be re-elected to the United Nations Human Rights Council. Moscow was suspended last year after launching its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Liberty at Night on the Free Talk Live network with Nate and Charlie. Let's keep talking about this Israel conflict.
Well, here's the thing. Everyone in this conflict, they think that they're right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But all of them do.
Everyone is right and each side has a point. Like, they're both right in some ways, but now we're talking about retaliations for retaliations. And yes, Palestinian people are upset about land being partitioned and taken away from them. But then they decided on these plots of land for people. Israel has encroached on some of that and occupied some of that because of a war that happened. And so they've kept some of the land. They're called an occupying force in some of the articles I read. So I don't know. I'm definitely outside of my bounds on this. Now you got these people in the Gaza Strip. Now I've been hearing about the Gaza Strip like my entire life. Mm-hmm. A lot of it. By the way, they came in on like paragliding in. And in my head, I mean, you're talking about the fans. I remember one time when I was younger, we were joking around about getting one of these things. And in my head, when I heard about them paragliding in, I was like, oh my God, it would be hilarious if they came in on one of those little fan go-kart things with a parachute.
Reminds me of Fly Away Home.
And that's what they came in on,
Remember that?
It's not hilarious. Yeah, the goose thing. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
It's not hilarious, but this is how people were landing, I believe, around that music festival where people were out doing a rave.
Oh, so this was Hamas's people
coming in? Them coming in.
Yeah, because Israel's like a heavily guarded place.
Yeah.
You know? It's making me rethink this whole border wall thing and whether or not it's going to work.
Told you they can get over it.
You can paraglide over the top of it.
Yeah.
You know, you can push through it with a bulldozer.
You can order all those parts online without any suspicion, probably.
Yeah. So you can. I mean, you can get these things for like a couple $1,000.
Bicycle
pretty
parts.
Sure. Yeah. There's people coming in right there. Anyway, there's...
And yeah, you didn't know you needed to shoot those people down.
Air Force landing right there.
Air Force.
260 bodies have been found at the site of the Israeli Music Festival following the attack. Wow. So, yes,
this was called the Nature
crazy.
Festival. This was essentially a rave in the wilderness. And videos we're seeing from just before the attack took place makes it look like, you know, your typical music festival, rave all-night party with a bunch of young people dancing to DJs. But then after these rockets start, including that video that we've all didn't exactly keep their car
anyway, so
God, could you imagine being like high?
I know.
Like maybe on shrooms or something. You're at this musical festival rave, trying to experience God, of course. Because
that's why you're doing
they're
that.
from Israel,
getting closer to God,
and they're on psilocybins or something.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, there's rockets coming in, there's bombs," and you're like, "What?" That would be that'd be a sobering moment.
Here's this warship making its way in, the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier going to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. It's a big boat. Tell you what, man.
Where's the aircrafts though?
They're all stored. They're all stored down below, dude. It's 2023. They're down there. They got all that military money, man. They store their stuff in the garage. Let's see. I believe they've said 9 Americans were killed in this. That's the official reports I've heard so far. A lot of people taken hostage, like 100 hostages. Israel has started bombing Gaza, and they gave everyone a warning, like women and children, get out. We're going to level this place, and it's just not going to be good. There's going to be a lot of innocent people that die from this. There were a lot of innocent people that died in Israel, and specifically, I don't like it because they were innocent human beings that died, which means I also don't like it when there are innocent human beings that die anywhere else either. Even in Gaza, because there are innocent people there. These type of wars, I mean, I guess Gaza is a small enough place. It's 25 miles long and 7.5 miles wide. So it's a small enough place. They probably have enough bombs to level the whole place if they want to. And they may end up essentially doing that. Over. It could fall off into the sea. I'm not sure. So anyway, I wanted to talk about some of the war hawk out here. Nikki Haley, who's running for president, said this is not just an attack on Israel. This was an attack on America. Finish them, Netanyahu. They should have hell to pay for what they have just done. Okay. During the first debate, I jokingly called Nikki Haley Ron Paul on a couple of her responses. This is not a Ron Paul response. At all. This was specifically, I don't know if she's seen a map or any of the videos. This was pretty specifically, actually, an attack on Israel. It wasn't an attack on America. Okay?
No, I know that the UN did not decree that land American land.
It is not.
So as far as America has not been involved in this thousands of year old war over there.
We've involved ourselves now when we give Israel a ton of money, basically made them a pretty big military power over there. But no, this was not American. This is what happens when you create American interests. Like we spend hundreds of billions of dollars, I don't know what it's totaled up to now, on Israel and their military. And now it's specifically an American interest, you know? And then I hear people say things like, well, Israel's our last line of defense against the name your country over there. Okay, when did they swoop in and win any of our wars that we've been losing for the last 20 years over there?
Yeah.
Last line of defense when?
Also, I feel like we have a big ocean in between those countries over there. And, you know.
It's real big.
Yeah.
Speaking of, that big ocean didn't stop 9/11 from happening. They're calling this Israel's 9/11. When you look at the number of people that have died and the number of people that are in their country, it would be the equivalent of like 40,000 people dying in an attack in the U.S. on a percentage basis.
So they're calling this 9/11. They're saying that there are many people saying that Iran funded this. And so that essentially means that Iran becomes Saudi Arabia in this comparison, which means we should do nothing to Iran at all because we totally ignored the fact that Saudi Arabia funded 9/11. It's not a conspiracy theory. The actual U.S. government found, concluded.
The hijackers were literally from Saudi Arabia.
We concluded that they were the ones funding
Not
this
a
thing.
conspiracy.
Let's see. We know this U.S. military planning to move U.S. Navy ships and military aircraft closer to Israel, a show of support, like moral support. You move them closer. You feel the warmth of the ships.
It's an empathy move.
Close. Just got to see them. You can't just do a phone call. You got to actually make an action, show up outside the house. Someone in the ship's going to be holding up a boombox outside the window, playing some kind of Israeli song, and that's how we show support. Yeah, something like that. This is some of the attacks in Gaza that are happening right now. It's going to be way worse, and already is going to be way worse for the Palestinian people than it is for the Israelis that were killed. There will be way more people that die in this. I'm not saying right or wrong, yes or no. I don't like any innocent people being killed at all. And we know as Americans that you can't destroy an ideology, that in fact, every time you kill a terrorist or even an innocent person, you create more terrorists that pop up after that. And it doesn't even have to be people in Gaza. It doesn't even have to be Palestinians. There are plenty of countries full of people that will sign up to go and fight Israel. And I'm sure it already happens right now. It doesn't even have to be these specific Palestinian people. So it doesn't stop. You're not going to stop it. There needs to be some type of a peace deal that happens. I mean, imagine living next door to that stuff going on. It'd be terrible. Israeli defense minister orders complete siege of Gaza, saying electricity, food, and water will be cut off after the Hamas attack. It's going to be really bad. There's 2 million people that live there. It's going to be a humanitarian disaster coming up here pretty soon. Here's a weird thing.
And this is, as the live group is saying, it's a cycle of hatred. It's just going to keep going. And this is, so I'm currently reading Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Really good book that I've scanned before, but now I'm actually reading it. The only way to actually promote peace, and this is something I think Martin Luther King Jr. did a really good job of, is love is the only thing that can actually drive out hate. You have to come from a place of understanding. And I'm not saying that the Palestinians are right or that the Israelites are right or whatever. What I'm saying is that you have to have someone in these negotiations willing to try to understand the other side. Be like, hey man, I get it. I understand. But you have to empathize with that human emotion of them feeling, because like I said, they both think they're right. Okay? The only way to stop the violence is to show love. And I don't know how that happens when you have thousands of years of history on both sides where they feel so strongly about it.
I don't
know what to do with that.
The issue is going to be that...
And it is way easier said than done. It's not like I could go over there and be like, create a peace deal, I'm not saying I can do that. I'm just saying this isn't a way to peace. Dropping bombs isn't a way to peace.
No, I mean, their idea is going to be that they're going to kill everyone that disagrees with them, and it's not going to work. Take it from the U.S. It's not going to work.
Then people argue, well, what about, Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Well, we'll see if they drop a nuke on Japan. I don't know if it'll work, but I guess it worked last time.
Yeah.
The thing is...
You mean Israel?
I'm just saying, I just wondered if Japan becomes the punch you bag anytime. Someone's like, okay, we dropped the nuke on Japan last time, just do it again. They did fine.
Yeah.
Everything ended up fine.
They seemed to recover.
They recovered well. So anyway, I don't know why my mind went that way. I guess because that was the part Japanese part of my mind. The problem is with the love part is that one of the sides has to either agree that the land isn't theirs or be okay with someone else occupying what they see as their land and just get over that. In your analogy of someone, let's just say they just move into the bedroom downstairs in your house, They're like, oh, well, the UN said that I could do this. Or they could be like, well, I lived here like 2,000 years ago, so I'm going to live right here.
Let's make it a free market.
And so
come in, make it a free
point,
market. You have to come in and purchase some property.
At some point, you're like, hey, dude, like you're kind of blocking my stuff here. You know, it's my house.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I don't know.
You get a safe right there full of what do you do's.
Yeah.
Or you got a book full of what do you do's.
You are allowed to.
Which one are you going to choose?
You're allowed to defend yourself. It's a mess. Get your brains. This is a mess.
It's a real mess.
Mm-hmm.
There's been now. It's one thing to support the Palestinian people and think that their land was stolen from them and that it's rightfully theirs. Of course, you're drawing your year line at a specific time after Israel was conquered and taken. So that's where you say history began. If you say this is Palestinian land, it's another thing to use this barbaric rape, murder, torture, kidnapping of innocent women and children and men and the elderly to go out and start protesting or start rallying in favor of Palestine at that point. Like, it's kind of gross when you think about that. But that's what happened over the weekend.
Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free.
I mean, it's got a nice beat to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like the cadence of the thing. But I really don't feel like you want to align yourself with like Hamas terrorists that go out there and, you know, raping and killing all the women and children and elderly people and all that. It's not a good look for your cause, in my opinion. And so some people disagreed, I think. They had pro-Israel, pro-Palestine people. They got fights going.
This isn't good.
No, it's not
That's
good.
in Florida, too. So, Florida, man.
At least it wasn't Nazis this time. Wait, is that actually playing out there?
How can you fight when that's going on?
I don't know. How does that make you want to fight?
Yeah.
Some people with American flags out there, too. Okay, and then we got a few minutes here, but if you look at some of the blame that's being thrown around real quick before we get out, one thing that we'll dive further into.
And I'm sure we're going to be talking about this all week.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trump revealed highly classified information to Russian foreign minister and ambassador. This is from May 15, 2017, from the Washington Post. And this is being thrown around as a potential thing that was then given to Iran, which was then given to Hamas. And now Trump is being blamed for a lot of this. We'll dig further into that. Of course, people have to find a way to blame someone. Another thing people are doing.
they're finding a way to blame Trump for this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he made the Israel deal recognizing Jerusalem as the capital.
And yeah, true.
So it's obviously his fault.
Well, it probably made some people mad when that happened. Then a lot of people saying, well, what about the weapons that were left behind in Afghanistan? They say U.S. weapons left behind in Afghanistan are being used to attack Israel. Now, I say it's a little soon to say that they've looked at the serial numbers on the guns and lined them up to the actual, you know, to the actual papers that we had on all the guns. I get it. That's probably a pretty fair speculation. We've scattered a lot of weapons around in this area.
In fact, almost everyone fights every war with American weapons.
Yeah. Basically, our military industrial complex is the source for all of the military violence in the entire world.
And as the live group says, I bet the CIA funds both sides.
Yeah, I'm sure they
But
are.
it's not like CIA funds one side, the FBI funds another, and then you have all these agencies, unknown agencies,
Then
that
you
don't
have
even have any letters.
Then you have the conspiracy
That'll never
theories.
confirm or deny.
You're bringing up CIA. Then you have the conspiracy theories. How? How in the heck did the CIA not know about this? Israel didn't know about this. Mossad didn't know about this. Their heavily guarded country wasn't able to stop this. They have plenty of surveillance. They have a ton of money for their military and their surveillance state. No one.
It was a festival time, like it was prime for some type of attack.
High security time. And it was also the 50-year anniversary. plus 1 day of Yom Kippur. I can't remember how you say it, which was another time that Israel was attacked on a religious holiday. Same time, same religious holiday it was at that time. And no one had any clue. People were just able to paraglide in there with their stuff, just have a full-blown incursion with actual people into Israel. So then your conspiracy theories go something like that. Plus Benjamin Netanyahu, not super well liked, or last week he wasn't super well liked and was going through some controversy as he has before. And now whole countries rally behind him. Isn't that weird? And also, if I might, if you'll pardon me, I'll throw in my own theory on top of this. It's we were drying up as far as our military money that we were going to be spending on other countries. Maybe not going to vote on sending more money to Ukraine. Jim Jordan, who might end up being the Speaker of the House, said, it's not important to America that we, send more money to Ukraine.
So now we can send it to Israel.
But guess what he's super on board with? He's super on board with sending money and aid to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really crazy how we have this changeover in the House. I know this is way far-fetched. We have this changeover.
You're just noticing things. You're not saying it's happening.
And then all of a sudden, the CIA, Mossad, this all happens. No one can stop it. And all of a sudden, here we go. We found someone that we can send billions of dollars in aid to again. And when it was officially drying up for Ukraine. It's just really weird how that happens.
It is.
That doesn't make the loss of life any less tragic. There's still a lot of people that were killed, but I assume that Israel is a government made up of men and women that are corrupted by their power and do terrible things.
Like any government.
Like any government, just like the U.S. government, just like all of the other governments. So I don't give them any leeway because they're a heavily religious government or anything. Okay, I don't know anything about them. Tim Scott says Biden's weakness invited the attack. Biden's negotiation funded the attack. And this is another thing going around. Biden, the administration, because we all know Biden is barely here. Biden allowed $6 billion of Iranian money to be released to them. I believe it was being held by South Korea, I think, at the time. So this is Iranian money and this is oil money. And we're holding it because Iran funds terrorism. And so we're not allowing them to get to their own money that they made from stuff that they sold. Okay. And so in a negotiation to release 5 or 6 U.S. prisoners, I believe, they released $6 billion that can only be used for humanitarian aid, like food, stuff like that for the country.
It's been earmarked.
Now, they say they're going to pay close attention to how they use that money, make sure it's only going for humanitarian purposes. Now, one problem is that money is fungible. You could say, well, we were going to use our $6 billion we had right here for food and water and stuff like that. And we got this $6 billion. And so now we can use this over here for something else. And we'll use this $6 billion for the food, water, whatever else it was that we were going to get.
But it frees up.
Another $6 billion. But I'm going to take a different stance than people on the right. You know what? It's Iran's money, and what actual right does the U.S. government have to say you can't have that money, even though you made it selling your own stuff that we all use, called oil, is super important, and we're not going to give you this money.
Iran did the same thing to us.
Yeah,
wouldn't
go well.
You can't put this in your military budget.
I don't know if you guys know this, but we funded a lot of terrorists around the whole world. Okay. We're one of the major terrorist cells around the whole world. A bunch of them have been funded by us in the first place. So how do you think all these other countries who get victimized by, what if you get victimized by Al-Qaeda or ISIS or the Taliban? I know that, books aren't as common in that side of the world, but they might be able to find out that turns out the U.S. created a bunch of these people, and then that creates more people that hate us. Blowback. That's what that's called.
It is.
It's blowback.
And isn't that interesting? If you look at places like Afghanistan, and all this information's available now. But yeah, we've been funding all sides at all times.
Okay, I know you gotta.
I think we should listen to that Ron Paul video.
This one has to do with Hamas specifically and Israel. It says 2 minutes long. We can listen to what he had to say about that.
This is a way to recap.
Sure.
What's happening in the Middle East, and in particular with Gaza right now, we have some moral responsibility for both sides in a way, because we provide help and funding for both Arab nations and Israel. And so we definitely have a moral responsibility, and especially now today, the weapons being used to kill so many Palestinians are American weapons, and American funds essentially are being used for this. But there's a political liability, which I think is something that we fail to look at, because too often there's so much blowback from our intervention in areas that we shouldn't be involved in. You know, Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel, because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat. And you say, well, yeah, that was better then and served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do this. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system, we're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas. So we first, indirectly and directly through Israel, help establish Hamas. Then we have election. Then Hamas becomes dominant, so we have to kill them. You know, it just doesn't make sense. During the 80s, you know, we were allied with Osama bin Laden, and we were contending with the Soviets. It was at that time our CIA thought it was good if we radicalized the Muslim world. So we financed the madrasa schools to radicalize the Muslims in order to compete with the Soviets. There's too much blowback. There's a lot of reasons why we should oppose this resolution. It is not in the interest of the United States. It's not in the interest of Israel either.
Amazing.
Silence.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
Silence afterwards, because no one agreed with them. That was a resolution to support Israel's right to defend itself and a peace agreement, and I guess he was opposed to that at the time.
So really, this attack from Hamas is America's fault.
Yeah.
We propped them up.
Hamas is Israel's Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. And we literally propped them up. We propped up Al-Qaeda against the Russians.
Mm-hmm. And then we had to fight them.
And then we had to fight them.
Just like someday we'll be fighting Ukrainian Nazis in Israel. Coming up, we're going to talk about the newest developments in this conflict, and we'll be talking about what we call Second Amendment rights in Israel.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. US President Joe Biden says the United States has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid an escalating crisis in the Middle East. Speaking on Tuesday afternoon, he confirmed that 14 Americans were killed by Hamas militants on Saturday. He said that attack was a stomach-churning, sickening atrocity on an appalling scale. FSN's Benji High reports from Washington.
Joe Biden's message was crystal clear.
We stand with Israel.
In condemning the horrors unleashed over the weekend, the president vowed to support the US's ally as it retaliates against Hamas in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza, where already hundreds have died. The administration is offering hostage rescue support, says it'll replenish Israel's missile defense system, and is ready to move additional assets, calling on Congress to take urgent action to fund such measures. And to any actor or nation thinking about exploiting this rapidly evolving situation for their own advantage, he had for them just a single word: don't.
Meanwhile, families of Americans missing in Israel are piling pressure on the Biden administration to take action to rescue their loved ones. The White House says 20 or more Americans are missing, as FSN's Washington correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House is already conceding President Biden faces a hostage crisis in Gaza. Now he's facing public pressure from the families of missing Americans who held a press conference in Tel Aviv. Nahar Netta's mother is among the presumed Hamas captives.
All we ask from the Biden administration and the Secretary of State, Blinken, is to act to the immediate release of all hostages.
The mother of another missing American described the last text messages she received from her son, who was attending a music festival attacked by Hamas on Saturday.
Israel has spent the day dealing with airstrikes, with rocket attacks coming from Gaza. The Israeli government, though, says it has secured the border. FSN's Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv says there's continued fears that Israel is preparing for a possible ground invasion.
Benjamin Netanyahu says that Hamas will have nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Right now, there are tens of thousands of troops gathering on the Gaza border, with military analysts saying this could be ahead of a potential ground operation, something that hasn't been seen since the 2014 Gaza war. We know there are tens of thousands of troops there. More than 300,000 reservists have been called up, which is absolutely unprecedented here in Israel.
In other news, Russia has lost a vote to be re-elected to the United Nations Human Rights Council. Moscow was suspended last year after launching its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today looking in more detail at the towns and villages on the Israeli side of the Gaza Strip that came under totally unexpected assault over the weekend by Hamas. Events since Friday represent the most significant assault on the state of Israel for at least half a century, and came 50 years and 1 day after the outbreak of the Yom Kippur War, under similarly surprising circumstances in 1973. But how could it have happened this weekend? Why was there no intelligence warning of the assault? And what do we know of the areas targeted? Tal Schneider is political correspondent for the Times of Israel.
Most of the people down there are doing agriculture, and villagers, they were open to this attack. The terrorists went into those villages pretty easily. So none of the fences worked. Israel has been working, security details have been working on an underground obstacle such that militants and terrorists will not be able to enter to Israel through tunnels. And apparently the on-the-surface fence was just ridiculous. They opened it with very simple, machinery.
And as much as the assault revealed a shocking failure in Israeli intelligence and preparedness, questions are also being asked in Western capitals about why US and European intelligence agencies also picked up no indication that an attack was in the works. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, President Joe Biden says the US has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid an escalating crisis in the Middle East. Families of Americans missing in Israel are piling pressure on the Biden administration, and the Israeli government says it's secured the border with Gaza, even as Hamas continues to fire rockets into Israel. That's Feature Story News' Nick Harper reporting.
We're being attacked by news from all sides in tonight's News Blitz. Now we're homing in on Houston, Texas, where NASA announced today that the crew of the International Space Station has successfully completed their 13-year mission studying man's ability to constantly repair a large object in space. NASA officials hailed the remarkable feat of maintenance at a press conference this afternoon.
And throughout human history, man has gazed at the stars and dreamed of fixing something up there. People once thought the ultimate feat in human repair was a really big boat. Today, we've accomplished so much more.
This comes in the wake of NASA's previous success, finding out how many times an astronaut could hold something in his hand, then let it go, watch it float in front of his face for a bit, then catch it again. All right, dust yourself off. You have survived the News Blitz.
Tune in tomorrow morning to Today Now. We'll look back at Jim's week as a polygamist.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. What's up, y'all? This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee, every Tuesday night. This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and they've implemented really cool features to ensure it's undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their chain locks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And a big thanks to Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about dash.org. Hey, what's up? We talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning every single day of the week when we want to.
And Tuesday nights
on Liberty at Night on Free Talk Live. Playing across the country. You know, we got a couple interactions lately on Twitter from people who said they found us on Liberty at Night.
There you go.
So I guess people are listening to the radio still these days. Half of the content is still consumed on the radio. You know, podcasting has risen to about 50% consumption now, which means the other half is still taking place on the radio, which is how it was sold to me. You know, and I thought that was a pretty good sales tactic, you know. Overall,
they won you over.
They did. They won me over with that right there. Okay, anyway.
Is there still a war?
There's war going on right now. I think there will always be war. We will always have some type of war to talk about, apparently. As libertarians, we super hate talking about wars going on around the world because we're anti-death. We don't like wars. We don't like interventionism. And then at the same time, I have this human drive to want to see justice brought to those people who did those awful, terrible things over the weekend. And I'll admit, I've watched some videos of bombs being dropped. And
is that good for your psyche?
Sadly, sometimes you see a bomb get dropped and it reminds me of back in the old days, which is scary. It reminds me of back in 2003, back in '03, when I was watching bombs get dropped on Iraq and was just excited as hell about it. Just so pumped. And I don't even know what they did to me. I'm not even sure what Iraq did, you know, but I knew I wanted to see it.
I knew I wanted to wave my American flag when that stuff was happening.
You're wearing your Armed Forces Entertainment hat
Armed
right now.
Forces Entertainment hat right now. I support the troops, and I have supported the troops with my time and my effort and my music in the past. So have you.
I have.
But you don't have a hat.
No.
Where's your merch? Where's your swag?
Well, we didn't get to go to Diego Garcia.
Yeah,
like you guys did.
It's true. It was.
That's
cool
probably
place.
where they had the hats.
They had I don't remember where we got the hats, but they were pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
we were talking in the pre-show. I think it's important. We were talking in the pre-show. Like you can be pro troops and still hate war.
True. In fact,
you can
I
be
think
pro defense and hate offense.
I think hating war is the most pro troop you can be. Being pro troop doesn't mean you want to see them die. I'm pro troop because I don't want to see them die, especially for causes that have nothing to do with us sometimes. So maybe that'll work itself into what we're talking about a little bit today. Clearly, terrible stuff happened over the weekend, which we've been talking a lot about. Everyone's talking about this right now.
It's continuing to happen.
Israel is laying waste to Gaza right now. And there's still people, there's still hostages, there's people that are missing.
So they opened up a can of a whoop ass.
They did. They did. And there's still, I think, 11 Americans that were killed now is the new number. And I believe there are some that are missing also. And you know who else is missing? This is weird. The president. Yesterday, he hasn't come out and give a speech about this yet.
President Biden.
President Biden hasn't come out and given a speech about this yet, although he's supposed to sometime today, I believe, or by the time we play this tonight. Maybe he will have already done that. And they call the lid, what they call where they're not going to do any more press, at 11 a.m. yesterday. They're like, oh, no, we're done talking about this today. We didn't talk. And that's it. We're done. We're going to tweet about junk fees and airlines and stuff like that. And so that's what you end up seeing from the White House account. It's really weird. Really weird. I see people are talking about
Bidenomics.
You're talking about the Cowboys game still, and I've been trying to forget that game really hard.
Yeah.
If I see something about football on my feed, I scroll past it really fast because I like to pretend it doesn't exist. This week, I will. Okay, let's go through a couple things.
We should send the Cowboys over.
This is where it gets a little scary to me because the Wall Street Journal, they reported a day ago, I believe, that Iran helped plot this attack on Israel over several weeks of time. That's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. And of course, it's just a news organization reporting this. You don't know that it's fully confirmed. You don't know for sure how involved they were in the plotting, but Iran has been pretty out in the open before about supporting Hamas. Like we know this. This is not some type of...
They've been pretty out in the open about how they hate Jews.
Yeah. This is not some type of a big secret. And when I see a headline like this, it scares me because you get people like Nikki Haley tweeting an attack on Israel is an attack on America. Well, who attacked Israel? Well, it was Hamas, but who funded Hamas? Well, it was probably Iran that did it. Well, does that mean that Iran attacked Israel and attacking Israel is like attacking America? So does that mean that Iran attacked America?
This all just reminds me of Braveheart.
Yeah. I think everything reminds you
an
of
attack
Braveheart,
on the
I'm pretty
king's
sure.
soldiers, an attack on the king himself.
Okay. I've only seen the movie once now, so I need to watch it maybe more times.
Well, that's how the whole thing got started, basically.
Read a little bit here from this Wall Street Journal article, Charles.
Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's Saturday surprise attack on Israel. This doesn't even say alleged. It says helped.
Yeah.
On Israel and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last Monday, according to senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah, another Iran-backed militant group. Officers of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had worked with Hamas since August to devise the air, land, and sea incursions, the most significant breach of Israel's borders since the 1973 Yom Kippur War.
Kippur is how it's been said our entire lives.
These people set.
You don't celebrate Yom Kippur? Like you don't
So
light a
air,
candle?
land, and sea.
Yeah.
Air, we saw the paragliders.
Yeah.
The engines. Fly away home style.
Now, how many lanterns did they light to warn people about that? Because that's kind of confusing. It's like one if by, two if by, like there just must have been lights all over the place, I guess.
Where were the sea incursions? I didn't see that part.
I didn't see that one. I don't know. I haven't seen that.
All right. Details of the operation were refined during several meetings in Beirut attended by IRGC officers and representatives of 4 Iran-backed militant groups, including Hamas, which holds power in Gaza, and Hezbollah, a Shiite military group. I said Shiite radio.
Shiite.
That's a form of Muslim group, I think, or faction. It's a faction of Arabs.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think it's a militant group and a political faction.
In Lebanon. U.S. officials say they haven't seen evidence of Tehran's involvement. In an interview with CNN that aired Sunday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, quote, "We have not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there is certainly a long relationship." They've been holding hands for a while.
You know, I got to be honest. I think I've been saying Anthony Blinken this whole time. And it turns out it's Antony.
It's Antony.
Antony. How about that? Tony Blinken.
Quote, "We don't have any information at this time to corroborate this account," said a U.S. official of the meetings.
So they have a thing here.
That they'll tell us
Senior Hamas official said the group planned the attacks on its own. Said this is a Palestinian Hamas decision. But the spokesman for Iran's mission to the United Nations said the Islamic Republic stood in support of Gaza's actions, but did not direct them. So they still say that they stand in support of them.
So how can you write that headline?
I'm not sure. Like, they've got a guy who was it that they said helped it. Iran security officials helped plan Hamas's attack, according to senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah. So apparently someone from Hamas said they did, and then someone from Hamas said they didn't. Basically, we have no idea. I would lean on the side of they probably did. And that's what scares me, because I don't want to get into another war in the Middle East. We got a lot of wars going on right now. I just tweeted this out earlier that our economy can't sustain fighting Russia and China, which we're supposed to be doing sometime with Taiwan,
to protect Taiwan,
and Iran at the same time. You know, without, I don't think they can sustain it, but they'd have to have massive inflation, more taxation. Like, we're already doing the thing with Russia. We spend $800 and something billion on the military, and adding in a couple more wars on top of that, I just don't see how we could possibly afford to do this.
I saw the Babylon Bee headline that was a picture of Zelensky and said it is now a bad time to ask for a few more bill.
Well,
Bill.
That's a
BIL. So good.
Zelensky's out there saying that Russia is the one who helped plan the attack on Israel. So he's basically out there saying, hey, if you want to protect Israel, give me your money. Because we got to stop.
We're fighting the good fight.
Or he's like, hey, I know there's bad stuff going on in Israel, but don't forget about me.
Yeah.
You know, don't forget about little old me over here fighting Russia.
Exactly.
And everyone's worried about this, but
this is Putin's war.
I still need your money right now.
This is a Putin-backed experiment.
This cycle of continuous war. I think that us as humans are just. I think that we are destined to always live in some state of war, and it's all like territorial dispute. Still, I mean, imagine this. Like, this is all still people fighting over land. That's what Israel and Palestine is. That's what China and Taiwan is. That's what Russia and Ukraine is. And in our minds, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but in our minds, like the borders are right. You know, like right now, can we just call it? Can we just call the map right now? And everyone just
say
agrees.
This is map.
This is the map.
This is map. There's no changing map.
But unfortunately, throughout history, this has always there were maps and there were borders and there were people who had these lands before what we have right now. And those borders change and change over time. And then we see these wars now over borders, and we're like, oh, this is wrong. This is these people's land. Well, actually, this is how history has always gone. People, the lines have always changed. And I don't know if that's something that's ever going to stop.
Been gerrymandering the map since human civilization. Go back to that, because I think there's something important here. A direct Iranian role would take Tehran's long-running conflict with Israel out of the shadows, raising the risk of a broader conflict in the Middle East, that's going to happen. Okay. Senior Israeli security officials have pledged to strike at Iran's leadership if Tehran is found responsible for killing Israelis. So if Iran was involved in any way, shape, or form, is what Israel's saying, then they're also going to drop bombs.
It's going to be
now. You have Israel, which is a nuclear power. Iran, which
we don't know. They're always 5 years away from having a nuke.
Yeah. That's where the real weapons of mass destruction were.
Yeah.
They moved from Iraq to Iran.
Probably.
And so, yeah, my prediction is it's going to escalate. It's going to get worse before it gets better. That's my prediction. It's typically how these things go. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong, because it'll just be more death and more destruction. And man, it's so crazy. Like, there's never been a better time to be alive unless you lived in the Middle East in the last 30 years.
Yeah. Or like 100, or like ever. Really. Yeah. It's not been that great to be in the Middle East. There are parts around the world where I'm like, let's just take some cargo planes and just load up some of these people, and bring them over. That's how I felt. That's how I felt when I was in Djibouti. I was like, why? This place is not that great, guys. Just come over. You can live in New Mexico if you want to not see anything green, but it's still better. It's still better in this desert. We got a lot of space in our desert.
So you want to bust people in
if they wanted to. States. I'm just saying it'd be way better than trying to protect the area. Why don't we just get people out of there, And if you want to stay, then it's on you. And then we're just done,
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good foreign policy move right there.
And then you just the United States is like violence-free zone. They put up signs.
You put up a violence-free.
Drop bombs here.
It's prohibited.
Yeah. Can't terrorists attack here.
There you go.
And then that way everybody's safe.
Okay, let's get back to a surface annoying conversation, less serious than all this terrible war, but still still talking about what happened over the weekend. There's been a few posts here about how X, formerly known as Twitter, has been allowing disinformation to flow as we learn more and more about this war. And in fact, even Elon Musk himself apparently tweeted out someone who's known for spreading disinformation and anti-Semitism, like straight up hates Jews. So let's talk about that here for a second, because it's kind of weird how this happened. Like Mehdi Hassan said, Midas Touch said, Elon Musk recommends X users follow anti-Semitic disinfo accounts for Israel information. Mehdi Hassan, the arbiter of truth, says, so weird how this keeps happening. All right, so
the arbiter of truth.
We got the Midas Touch headline right there. Midas Touch said, as disinformation flourished on social media app X in the wake of Hamas's attacks on Israel, X owner Elon Musk recommended to his nearly 160 million followers that people follow accounts that engage in anti-Semitism and spread disinformation about global events. On Sunday afternoon, Musk posted, quote, for following the war in real time, War Monitors and Scent Defender are good. It's also worth following direct sources on the ground. Please add interesting options and replies. These accounts recommended by Musk are notorious spreaders of disinformation on X, often posting debunked videos that have zero relation to the conflicts they are purported to depict. So we have more. We have Rachel Maddow from MSNBC. Saying, as false war information spreads on X, Musk promotes unvetted accounts. And she's tweeting out an article from the Washington Post. And then you go to the Washington Post. They say, as false information about rapidly changing war between Gaza Strip militants and Israel proliferated on the social media platform, Elon Musk personally recommended that users follow accounts notorious for promoting lies. Now, the reason that something like this bothers me so much is that you have all these people, the Washington Post, you got MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, you got Mehdi Hassan out there. And these are all the people who want to be the only people that can tell you what's going on in the world. What they say is the truth. And anyone else is basically spreading misinformation, disinformation, if it's not the information they want you to have. And so they all go out here talking about how Elon Musk is recommending these disinformation accounts. Okay, so you want to check on that. Is he in fact doing that? Here's the tweet where he tags these people. Now, here's the problem. You can't find this tweet anymore because he deleted this tweet. Why did he delete the tweet? Because he accidentally tagged the wrong account. In fact, there are 3 accounts that come up when you look at War Monitor, and they've all got very similar handles. And what you can clearly see is that once he realized that he tagged a different account, he deleted the tweet. But that doesn't stop the fact that people got screenshots of it. And now they can all say that he recommended that people go and follow someone who's been spreading disinformation and who is anti-Semitic and all of that. And I just wanted to point out the hypocrisy here of these people coming out and telling you that it's Elon Musk who is spreading disinformation. And in the process of them telling you this, they are in fact the one who is misinforming or disinforming you, because he did recommend this account that shows these things, but he immediately deleted the tweet once he realized that he tagged the wrong account. But they use a screenshot of him tagging the wrong account to say that he is spreading disinformation. And then they act like he didn't delete it. In fact, I looked at every article that they all posted out about it. None of the articles mentioned the fact that he deleted the tweet. Once you could see clearly that there are 3 different pages with very similar names. And so we know exactly what happened. I've tagged the wrong account before. I've misspelled things on Twitter before. I've messed up before on Twitter. Okay. His problem is when he tweets that out, it goes out to millions of people, and then there's millions of screenshots, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay. It's an extremely bad faith argument, and it's done under the guise of being the people who are telling you the truth all the time. Okay. They are trying to destroy Musk because he is letting information get out that they, the gatekeepers of information, don't want you to see, or is not coming from them because they want to be the truth tellers, and they're lying to you in the process of doing it. And so that kind of thing it bothers me.
Nothing like,
I'll be honest.
Nothing like lying to you, telling you that it's the truth.
I know. It's weird.
It's my favorite.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We've all been there before. I know I'm there all the time where I'm trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden my brain just keeps racing. My thoughts just keep racing. And it turns out like 2 hours later, I'm just sitting there thinking about stuff that I shouldn't even be worried about. Maybe it's time to work out, and you're excited, but then all those negative thoughts creep in. You know what you should do. You know what's good for you, but you just can't do it. Well, therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. Now, I've done therapy before in the past. It was very instrumental in my life and who I am today. Charlie has used BetterHelp also in the past. He loved it. Very easy, very simple, and very helpful as well. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/GML today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/GML. All right, coming up, we're going to be talking about the Second Amendment, and we're going to be talking about the right to self-defense in Israel. I'll be honest, I thought the people in Israel would have at least as relaxed gun rights as we do here in the U.S. We complain about our gun rights being taken away all the time and how hard it is sometimes to get your permit to carry in certain areas around the country. Turns out it's actually pretty difficult in Israel as well, and less than 3% of the population is armed. Did that play a role in this terrible attack that happened over the weekend? Remember, you can go to BernieLies.com on your browser, and that'll bring up all of our links. And of course, you can always listen to Free Talk Live on your favorite podcast app.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is traveling to Israel on Wednesday to offer Washington's support following the Hamas attack that killed more than 1,000 Israelis. The U.S. is working with the Israeli government to secure the release of dozens of hostages who were taken into Gaza, including an estimated 20 Americans. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The State Department says this will be a visit of solidarity and support. The Secretary, we're told, will reaffirm the U.S. commitment to Israel, discuss measures to bolster security, and underscore Washington's unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself. Blinken is expected to discuss Israel's request for more ground-to-air missiles for its Iron Dome intercept defense, as well as more ammunition and additional cooperation on intelligence sharing. He plans to meet senior officials in Israel on Thursday and then travel on to Jordan. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
U.S. President Biden insists the U.S. has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid the escalating crisis in the Middle East. Biden called the attack a stomach-churning, sickening atrocity on an appalling scale and a violation of every code of human morality. From Washington, FSN's Benji Heyer reports.
Joe Biden's message was crystal clear.
We stand with Israel.
In condemning the horrors unleashed over the weekend, the president vowed to support the US's ally as it retaliates against Hamas in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza, where already hundreds have died. The administration is offering hostage rescue support, says it'll replenish Israel's missile defense system, and is ready to move additional assets, calling on Congress to take urgent action to fund such measures. This is not about party or politics, Biden declared, but the security of our world. And to any actor or nation thinking about exploiting this rapidly evolving situation for their own advantage, he had for them just a single word: don't. Benji Heyer, Washington.
U.S. stocks were given a boost Tuesday as traders focused on comments from several members of the Federal Reserve. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
President of the Atlanta Federal Reserve, Raphael Bostic, gave the US markets a boost Tuesday, stating that he doesn't think further interest rate hikes are needed to cool inflation. And addressing a town hall event, Minneapolis Fed President Neel Kashkari said he's hopeful for a soft economic landing as inflation drops but the labour market remains tight. The Dow closed up 0.4% on Tuesday, the S&P up 0.5%, and the Nasdaq up 0.6% on the heels of those comments.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
What's up, y'all? This is Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Happy Tuesday night, everyone. And we're going to be playing a video describing some of the things that happened over the weekend. And if you want to watch that on YouTube or on Rumble or on Odyssey when we go through it, that's fine. Just a warning, we don't normally play that kind of graphic videos, but we're going to be playing it so we can discuss how this happened and whether or not it's important to have Second Amendment rights all around the world. Remember, we all have the right to defend ourselves. We all have the right to bear arms. What matters is whether or not your government protects that right, or if they actively remove that right from you and have you work and have to convince them to try and get that right so you can protect yourself and your family. It's a pretty important distinction. All right, I wanted to show you something. Now, warning, in this video, you'll see probably some blood and stuff like that. It was a little bit more than what I thought it was going to be, but I'm starting halfway into the video, so we're not going to watch the whole thing. I was just thinking, as these terrorists came into the city and they started going door to door, they're driving around this whole town, they're just killing people in their cars, they're going house to house, snatching up people, killing people, doing all that. I questioned the ease with which these few trucks full of people were able to just go house to house, door to door, street to street, doing this, encountering no resistance while they were doing that.
Like
and
no one protecting their homes?
And so let's just play a little bit of the description of what happened, and then we'll talk about why this is the case.
Motorcyclists were found dead. One resident captured the terrorists approaching the police station. The gunman opened fire on a passing police car. Others are filmed moving along a residential street, kicking doors and shooting at a passing car. At least 9 assailants on foot approached the police station and exchanged gunfire with officers. From the opposite direction, another group of attackers charges toward the fray, flanking the police station. One resident filmed police defending the station entrance.
One bullet was pretty close. Did you hear that?
Yeah. So this
By
is
the
just
camera.
This is just some of the video, and of course they're attacking a police station in a lot of this video. So not the best one, but you hear all these stories of people hiding in their bunkers and their safe rooms and stuff like that because this is something that they kind of prepare for. And I'm not saying this didn't happen, and it's tough to know exactly what happened just a few days after the fact. And of course, if the people still didn't survive, you're not going to hear the exact stories that happened. So I'm not saying this was always the case exactly the whole time, but you're not hearing a ton of stories of people putting up a really strong fight. Like when people came to their house, they just opened up on them, you know? Mm-hmm. Now, Charles, you know, if you saw people going down the street door to door, would you just get in a safe room and hope that they don't find you? And if they do find you, then you're dead?
Well, I would tell them to wait.
Yeah.
So I could get my permit.
Okay.
To show them my permit.
Pass your classes.
Yes.
Go through training.
That I'm qualified.
Stuff like that.
I'm qualified to stand my ground.
Now,
that's my first step. And then I would tell them to be patient so I could go to the lake and go fishing. And then I would be back. And then we could set the whole thing up. And that way it'd be fair.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now,
that's what I would do.
I'm not trying to blame the victims here. Not trying to victim blame. I'm not trying to blame Israel. I'm not saying that
anybody who blames victims starts out by saying that.
That's true. That's how it is. I'm not victim blaming right now. What I want to do is just highlight how important it is to have a right to bear arms, which we all do, even the people in Israel do, but their government doesn't protect that right. Their government actually takes that right and only gives it to them at specific times. And so I was looking up what some of their laws are, and this is a pretty recent article. Firearm licensing in Israel, how strict are the gun laws? So this is from February of this year. And they say during times of elevated terrorism in Israel, applications for civilian gun licenses have skyrocketed. Case in point, in the wake of 2022's combined ramming stabbing attack and the subsequent mass shootings at Hadera and Bnei Brak. I don't know how you say that.
Bnei.
I don't know. The number of requests for new carry permits purportedly multiplied by over 40 over a 10-day period. So they talk about the good guy with a gun theory. They say that it has actually proven itself in Israel. For instance, armed civilians ended large-scale terror killings in Beersheba in 2022 and Ariel November 15, 2022, preventing deadly attacks. Let's see, in, I don't know how to, Gush Etzion, and then Jerusalem, and then the Judean desert several times where civilians ended the attacks. Other major attacks that were stopped with the help of armed civilians include, and then all of these things. Indeed, a high percentage, if not a majority, of Palestinian terrorists who are caught in the act of attempting to murder Israelis are swiftly neutralized by private civilians carrying weapons. Yet, contrary to popular conception, only a tiny minority of Israelis own firearms. And this piece will explain the Jewish state's strict gun control laws. So, they've only 2.6% of the entire adult population has the personal gun license, the legal ability to have a firearm in Israel. All right, so there's still 150,000 Israelis, they said, have a personal gun license. Okay, that excludes weapons held by IDF soldiers and police officers and border guards. They said there's 400,000 illegal firearms, the vast majority circulating in Arab communities. Let's see, in 2023, Israel's parliament advanced legislation meant to tackle illegal firearm possession, and the Israel police has carried out near daily raids with an eye towards seizing illegal weapons. Israel's firearm law of 1949 and its related ordinances do not recognize any right to bear arms, and private gun ownership is subject to many restrictions. For one, civilians can only apply for a pistol. Rifles are wholly off limits. Notice that they weren't off limits for the people that were going door to door killing people. That seems important to me. Why would you need to own a rifle, an assault weapon, as people call them? Furthermore, as a general rule, civilians can have no more than 50 bullets in their possession at any given time. Only 50. That's it. And while the vast majority of Israelis receive weapons training during their mandatory military service in the IDF, there are numerous additional prerequisites for obtaining a carry license. So you got to.
So you're saying it's hard.
It's hard to get a gun.
It's hard to get a gun.
Hard to get a gun.
And maintain a gun. They don't have any ammunition.
Yeah, only 50 rounds. That's it. They include an age requirement. Israelis who completed their 2 or 3 year IDF service can apply at their 20th birthday. Meanwhile, those who did not serve have to wait until they are 27, and non-citizen residents become eligible at the age of 45. Crucially, prospective licensees are asked to demonstrate a specific need to own a weapon.
What other need do you have?
For example, living or working in the West Bank beyond the Green Line or in other designated dangerous locations increases one's eligibility. Those employed in professions that encounter unsafe situations on a regular basis, including paramedics, firefighters, and other emergency responders, and tour guides are also eligible. Tour guides. There you go. Applicants should have at least basic knowledge of the Hebrew language, present a health declaration signed by a physician, and complete a theoretical exam and compulsory training. Only after an interview and thorough security check does the applicant receive his or her license, which must be renewed every 2 years and requires periodic refresher courses. Let's see. The Firearms Licensing Department rejected roughly 40% of all requests in 2018. So, bottom line, they have common sense gun laws in Israel to keep people safe. All right?
Yeah.
So,
and terrorists are able to go door to door.
So once again, I'm not
kidnapping, raping, murdering.
I don't want to blame them. I want people in the U.S. to remember that it's important to have firearms. You know, it's not like nothing like this could ever happen in the United States. It probably could happen. I think it's less likely to happen in the U.S. because of the gun ownership, and I think it's very much less likely to happen in areas where people are actually allowed to have guns, where they protect your right to have a gun instead of trying to take it away. I don't know how much of that you're going to see going on in right here in Tennessee or in Texas, people rolling down the street, just taking out people house to house.
Yeah.
You know,
It wouldn't happen for very long.
No, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why the right to gun ownership is very, very important.
Well, and they proved it even in Israel. In Israel, I mean, they proved how civilians that were armed help stop and prevent further mass destruction. And so it is extremely important.
I'm hoping that changes after this. I know that it's very soon to be talking politics and laws and stuff like that immediately after something like this happens. But I do hope that people realize that what these people needed, remember, they've got the most advanced security apparatus in the whole world, maybe just next to the United States, the most surveillance. They got walls. They got, like, everyone has mandatory military service, you know? They got all that stuff. But that doesn't help you when people are just going door to door killing people and you can't do anything. Because they started by they go and they take out the police stations. And then all the people there are defenseless because they don't have any weapons. So.
And they were able to kill the equivalent of what would be 40,000 people in America. Based on population.
Yeah.
So imagine that.
Yeah.
That's all of this protection that Israel has for you. Your government's going to protect you. That didn't work. And hasn't worked. Several times it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you want to take on some ownership of that responsibility to protect yourself and your family?
I would.
And not rely just on your government, who has no obligation to protect you whatsoever.
I was actually surprised when I saw this. I'd started thinking, like, man, it's really weird that you don't just see people, you know, making a stand as this was happening. I kept hearing about this door-to-door thing. And so I started looking up, and I was actually surprised with all of the violence that people in Israel are worried about and all of the terrorism and stuff like that. I really did think that they'd be protecting people's right to self-defense, and instead they just rely almost completely on the government to do it. And that's one of the things I believe that Hamas knew when they came in to do this. So keep that in mind. All right. When people are having these gun debates online, you say, remember the Jews. That's it. You just say it just like that.
Yeah. Never forget.
Yeah. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Well, sometimes we're faced with a crossroads in life and we don't really know which path to take. Maybe you're thinking about a career change or feeling like your relationship needs a little help. Whatever it is, therapy can help you map out your future and trust yourself to find the way forward. I've done therapy in the past, and honestly, it helped me quite a bit. I've told you guys that. And our co-host Charlie is still using BetterHelp. He loves it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/GML today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/GML. Now, normally we'd be talking about the Holocaust, but now we're talking about this, and they haven't given it a cool name yet. I've been wondering what the name's going to be. What's your name for it?
I don't know.
Has anyone heard any names? No? Okay. Other business, we'll see what Joe Biden comes out and says today. The House is getting back together today as well. They're going to start trying to pick a speaker. I believe that this will expedite the process because the number one important business on the table is going to be sending your money to Israel, or at least sending more weapons to Israel. And that's another weird thing. Israel is actually a really advanced nation. You look at GDP per capita. They're like number 14, I think, in the world. Military spending as a percentage of GDP, I think they're number 4 in the world. They have the third most stocks listed in the U.S. stock market to America and China. And in Israel, like, they have a very advanced economy. They're a rich nation. And we've been paying for a lot of their military. You know, we send them billions every year. It's like 50 billion?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Too much.
I don't know what exactly. Don't quote me on the number, but it's a lot of money that we send them every year. And I just wonder why they need us to send them more ammunition for the Iron Dome thing that they have. And the Iron Dome thing's really cool, and they definitely need it. It seems like they have an advanced enough economy that
they just didn't imagine the paraglider.
That's the problem, yeah. But
I guess the Iron Dome couldn't detect those guys.
They dealt with something like 5,000 rockets sent at them since this thing started on Saturday, and the Iron Dome's been taking care of most of them, but it's depleting their ammo that they have for it. And I wonder when it's their job to create this thing and defend themselves, or to at least create the ammo for it. Now, the ammo, probably under copyright law, more than likely, and you got to buy it from the people who made the Iron Dome system. I guarantee you that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's probably why they can't make their own. Oh. They'd probably get arrested for making their own, if they did that. I bet you that's in the contract, that the ammo's got to be purchased from the company.
Oh, I'm sure.
that made the system.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big problems, because they should be at a point where they're able to take care of themselves. And when we have so many issues going on in the U.S., it gets really weird to see that it's our job to do this.
I think the shorter list would be, what countries are we not sending money to?
Yeah.
And I don't know if there is one that we're not sending money to. It's just, and we're doing all of that. We're this, benevolent country doing all of that, while at the same time we're $35 trillion in debt.
33-ish, 30, yeah,
it'll
33.
be 35 in a couple months.
Yeah. By the time someone's listening to this, they'll be like, "Oh, remember when we were only $35 trillion in debt?"
Yeah. So we don't have any money to give anyone.
No, Tom, that's one of the places we don't send any money. The U.S.
I'm sure we send some kind of money to North Korea.
Oh man, I don't know if we have to go into the other subject, although we do. It has nothing to do with Israel is the problem. Do we want to talk about something?
Yeah, let's do a break and
has nothing to do with Israel.
Yeah, let's do a quick break.
Yeah, we can't say break, and the break was 15 minutes ago.
Oh.
So
let's do a short.
Can't just do that. It's got a specific time.
Let's do a short recession. Let's recess.
Okay.
Can I say recess?
I don't know. We don't need to.
No.
Coming up, we're going to talk about this. All right, we're back. There we go.
One problem I have right now is I'm extremely distracted.
Are you? Why? Why are you distracted?
Well, there's a kid. I don't know whose it is. Mine, I think.
No.
And he's very smart.
Yeah.
He finds a way to get my attention by pulling on the extension cord that runs out of our room because we want to separate the lights and other stuff to keep it from tripping the breaker like it did the one time. So he'll pull on that and make noises to get my attention. And so I got one ear in and one ear out.
Literally.
Yeah.
Right now. Why don't we just call it then? I've got other stuff I can pull and
do you
put
have
into
enough?
a second.
Do you have enough? I mean, we can go through this.
No, I got it. Let's do it tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, tomorrow's White Pill Wednesday. We'll do the specific story on Thursday.
Do you guys want Parker to come in and sound off the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kidding. What a day.
It has been a day. All right. Let's go.
All right, y'all. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please share it with a friend, a family member, or a foe. Let them know. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yep. Let them know what's going on around the world and where to find the truth. The thing is, like, Nate and I don't know everything, and we'll tell you that.
Yeah, we don't.
We'll tell you that we don't know. But as we find things out, that's what we try to do. And so Elon Musk should have tweeted us out, probably, as arbiters of truth.
Well, but
really, he wouldn't have gotten in trouble.
An important thing here, like as libertarians who are non-interventionists, it's a tough word to say, and it's even harder principle to follow. Okay.
Especially when you have a lisp.
Yeah. Very, very difficult stuff. When we don't know everything, like about Israel and Palestine and the history of this, and there's been things going back and forth between them our entire lives, and Israel's done things wrong. Palestinians have done things wrong. Hamas is like a terrorist radical Islamic organization, and
started by the United States.
Started in Israel, yeah. to fight the other people that were in Palestine. And then, of course, it becomes, more than what you thought it was going to be.
Him and his group get screwed over.
Yeah.
So now they're like, well, screw you guys.
Yeah. And so they don't want, Hamas doesn't want this two-state solution. They don't want peace. They don't want to allow Israel to exist. They don't want to give up they're never going to get over the fact that they believe it's their land, and Israel's not going to get over the fact that they believe it's their land. And so when this happens, only violence is going to come in its place. And we're just going to have to see who wins. And my only hope, and I know that I know they're doing it, but I hope that Israel does a good job making sure they're not killing civilians. I know that Hamas purposefully hides behind civilians. They launch their rockets from neighborhoods. Their military, their armories are in the basements of hospitals. And so they purposefully hide behind civilians. And that way, when Israel bombs them, they can propagandize about how Israel's killing innocent Palestinian people. And so
by the way, that's pretty smart.
It's smart.
You have to give it to them.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it is disgusting.
It's absolutely terrible. Yeah. And I'm not sure what you do, because if Israel just does nothing, does that mean Hamas? I'm not saying Palestine. Does that mean Hamas is just not going to do anything? Just going to leave them alone? No. The answer is no. Are they going to give up their land that they have? The answer is no. Is Hamas going to be okay with Israel keeping the land? No. The answer is no. One of them is going to have to win. And unfortunately, now we're fighting kind of an ideological battle a little bit. And we know how those play out. As Americans, we know how those battles play out. All right? Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Good luck. I really hope that someday we'll see the end of war, but it's not going to be this week. I'll tell you that.
Maybe this year.
You think?
Well, it won't be
like
this
when
year.
We're all dead?
It won't be in the next 5 years.
Only the dead have seen the end of war.
Yeah, unless
Charlie.
all the nukes get launched, then that'll be the end of war. That'll be the end of humans.
Coming up, we're going to lighten it up just a little bit. We'll be going through some of the dumb bleep of the week. That's where the live group gets to submit some of the dumbest things that they saw. And the things were submitted before the whole Israel-Hamas thing happened. So not going to be any mention of that. But we go through these things. We list them out number by number. And the live group gets to vote. By the way, the live group, they're called the Fed Haters Club. They went to joingml.com and they joined for as little as $6 a month. Of course, you can join for more if you want to. That's if you want to be a real libertarian. It really just matters how much you care about individual liberty and the future of human civilization. So you can do $6 a month if you want, or you can do more, and you get to hang out with myself and Charlie every single day of the week when we want to do a show. You can comment during the show. We'll talk and interact with you, and really you get to direct how the show goes. You can also go to our merch store, which is GodHatesFeds.com. GodHatesFeds.com to get your God Hates Feds shirt or any of the other number of shirts that I've made and put on there. And you can go to BrandonLies.com on your browser, which will bring up a link to everything we have. Dumb Bleep coming up.
If you're looking for work, there's a piece of paper more important than your resume. It's the cover letter attached if you're snail mailing, or the email to which you attach your resume. Make it 4 short paragraphs. Paragraph 1, say that you're applying for work. The person you're sending to gets a ton of mail about all sorts of things. If you have a password, that's your first sentence. Tom Nelson tells me you and I should meet. Paragraph 2, what you do and how that relates to the opening. Be as specific as possible. Paragraph 3, why you want this particular job. I'm originally from Boston, so I know the market well. I have family and friends in the area, so this would be a homecoming for me. Paragraph 4, unless the job posting stipulates no calls, and I will call you to follow up. Thank you in advance for your time. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
Protection. Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom.
Filibuster. Police state.
It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is traveling to Israel on Wednesday to offer Washington's support following the Hamas attack that killed more than 1,000 Israelis. The U.S. is working with the Israeli government to secure the release of dozens of hostages who were taken into Gaza, including an estimated 20 Americans. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The State Department says this will be a visit of solidarity and support. The Secretary, we're told, will reaffirm the U.S. commitment to Israel, discuss measures to bolster security, and underscore Washington's unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself. Blinken is expected to discuss Israel's request for more ground-to-air missiles for its Iron Dome intercept defense, as well as more ammunition and additional cooperation on intelligence sharing. He plans to meet senior officials in Israel on Thursday and then travel on to Jordan. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
U.S. President Biden insists the U.S. has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid the escalating crisis in the Middle East. Biden called the attack a stomach-churning, sickening atrocity on an appalling scale and a violation of every code of human morality. From Washington, FSN's Benji Heyer reports.
Joe Biden's message was crystal clear.
We stand with Israel.
In condemning the horrors unleashed over the weekend, the president vowed to support the US's ally as it retaliates against Hamas in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza, where already hundreds have died. The administration is offering hostage rescue support, says it'll replenish Israel's missile defense system, and is ready to move additional assets, calling on Congress to take urgent action to fund such measures. This is not about party or politics, Biden declared, but the security of our world. And to any actor or nation thinking about exploiting this rapidly evolving situation for their own advantage, he had for them just a single word: don't.
U.S. stocks were given a boost Tuesday as traders focused on comments from several members of the Federal Reserve. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
President of the Atlanta Federal Reserve, Raphael Bostic, gave the US markets a boost Tuesday, stating that he doesn't think further interest rate hikes are needed to cool inflation. And addressing a town hall event, Minneapolis Fed President Neel Kashkari said he's hopeful for a soft economic landing as inflation drops but the labour market remains tight. The Dow closed up 0.4% on Tuesday, the S&P up 0.5%, and the Nasdaq up 0.6% on the heels of those comments.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, an eyewitness account of the situation in the Gaza Strip. It comes from Mahmoud Shalabi, the acting director of Medical Aid for Palestinians, a British charity offering medical services in the West Bank, Lebanon and Gaza for the last 30 years. He is on the ground in Gaza and says he's never seen anything like the strength of Israel's military reprisals for the weekend's murders and kidnappings carried out by Hamas on Israeli territory.
The frequency of the bombardments is increasing. It's really a grim reality that we are living in right now because there are many fatalities and many people are injured, and the health system is actually struggling to cope with the huge influx of the injuries that are facing it. Many of my colleagues have been receiving messages who are living near the west of Gaza, near the coast, They have been told to evacuate to the south of Gaza toward the shelters. There are no shelters there. This is not going to be safe for anyone in Gaza right now.
A spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces claimed on Monday that by the time the country's assault on Gaza is over, Hamas will never be able to strike Israeli civilians again. It is unclear how the Israeli military can possibly avoid civilian casualties in Gaza, nor avoid putting the lives of Israeli hostages being held there at risk. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken prepares to travel to Israel to offer Washington support following the Hamas attack that killed more than 1,000 Israelis. President Biden insists the U.S. has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid the escalating crisis in the Middle East. And U.S. stocks get a boost as traders focus on comments from several members of the Federal Reserve. That is the latest Feature Story News. Iris.
In Baltimore, the streets have gotten safer thanks to the success of the new Permanent Daylight Initiative, which aims to prevent crime by illuminating the entire city 24 hours a day using high-powered floodlights.
It's just that it's so bright all the time, even in the rain.
City officials say there have been zero violent crimes since the start of the program, except for one man who vandalized the light by throwing his body off a building into it. Now let's set our crosshairs on to Mountain View, California, where Gmail servers were down for nearly 2 hours today. In an online statement, the company said, "Tremble before Google. With the mere flip of a switch, we can bring you to your knees." After reestablishing service this afternoon, Google changed its logo and released a statement saying, if not appeased with a 20% increase in Google Chrome downloads by the next vernal equinox, they will take back their generous gift unto mankind of colored conversation labeling. All right, you can take off your helmet. You have survived the News Blitz.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. It's time for everyone's favorite Dumb Bleep of the Week. We'll count down some of the dumbest things that the live group submitted, and we'll see which thing is the dumbest. We're going to go through all these. The live group's going to vote on what the dumbest thing is, and that will be this week's Dumb Bleep of the Week. Charlie, do you understand the rules?
Yes.
Okay.
But the points don't matter.
The points do not matter.
I know that.
They do not.
But somebody gets a trophy at the end of the year.
There will be a trophy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whoever submitted. Right now, I'm pretty sure I'm winning. Maybe Costco. It's kind of split. So I will make sure it's a great trophy if I win.
We all know Nina Turner's in the lead, though, as far as dumbest things said this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we got to have the Dumb Bleep of the Year tournament bracket challenge at the end of the year still. So anyhow, let's get to number one. This is one that we talked about to start the week, but we didn't get to talk about, over the weekend or whatever when this stuff happened. And we got to mention it because it was dumb. And it was Jamal Bowman, congressman from New York, pulling the fire alarm because he thought it was a door handle or something like that, whatever the story is right now.
By accident,
mistakenly, as they were going to vote. Of course, other things have happened in Congress since this happened. AOC was on State of the Union on CNN defending Jamal Bowman. Let's watch like 50 seconds of AOC. That's about all I can handle. So here we go.
There was an interesting moment over the weekend when your New York colleague, Congressman Jamal Bowman, and he's under investigation for this now after Capitol Police say he pulled a fire alarm in one of the House office buildings. Democrats were trying to delay a final vote on the bill. There he is pulling the fire alarm. He says it was an accident. He thought pulling the alarm would open a door based on the fact that the doors to his right there were locked, and there was a sign that he said I think someone said it was confusing. I'll be honest, it doesn't really make sense to me, his explanation. Have you talked to him? What's going on there?
I mean, listen, I think if you actually do see some of the photos of the signs, I think there's something to be said about the government's about to shut down. There's a vote clock that's going down. The exits that are normally open in that building were suddenly closed.
So you pulled the fire alarm?
So what I am here to say is that House administration and U.S. Capitol Police and Jamal Bowman are an active, and he's fully participating in saying there was a misunderstanding. But what I do think is important to raise
is the fact
that Republicans
That's important
Representatives
to
like
raise.
Nicole Malliotakis and others immediately moved to file motions.
Okay. So, of course, she goes out there to defend how this wasn't actually that crazy. Just Republicans.
Got to mention.
What's important to mention is Republicans. Now, she does bring up a good point, actually. She talks about Santos, the guy who we don't really know who he is or where he's from or what he's done in his life. That no one has moved really to, the Republicans haven't done a lot of work to try and knock him out of office, but they did file a motion to fire alarms on the brain. They did file a motion to expel Bowman because of this felony that he committed, but not with Santos because they're all buddy-buddy. The truth is...
They act like Bowman was like a slave and has no idea what a fire alarm...
He's never been in the building this nice.
Yeah, until now he's a congressman.
I also love... people have, while we have AOC up on the screen, people have been like, oh, it wasn't even the actual Capitol building. It was the Cannon office building, which is separate from the Capitol. Yeah, that's also the building that AOC was in on January 6th. And she thought she was about to get, murdered. She cries when she talks about it. So it's not that separate from the Capitol building.
If only those people on Jan 6 would have pulled the fire alarm, they could have gotten away with it.
I know. That's all they had to do. Why go in there with all these people, your horns and stuff like that, taking stuff? You just pull the fire alarm. Problem solved. And just say that you thought it was a door handle or whatever.
The doors would have opened.
Okay. Number one is going to be Jamal Bowman. Of course, he released a statement wanting to clear up any confusion. This was a misunderstanding. He sincerely thought that this was going to open the door, didn't realize the fire alarm was going to set off a fire alarm in the building. It was a test.
That's what fire alarms do.
He was wanting to check and see. So there was some messaging sent out from him. He's now blaming it on his staff, calling some of his critics Nazis. All right. Which is something someone on the left would never do. And a funny part, after this all happened, Bowman has disavowed the Nazi talking point and has said that it's not right to call people Nazis when they're not actual Nazis, and that this has a specific name, a meaning to it. He says, I just became aware that in our messaging guidance, there was inappropriate use of the term Nazi without my consent. I condemn the use of the term Nazi out of its precise definition, which is National Socialist, I guess. It is important to specify the term Nazi to refer to members of the Nazi Party and neo-Nazis.
Nazi.
Okay. I guess that's what we're going to do now. Of course, Michael Knowles posted a screenshot of Jamal Bowman calling him a Nazi randomly over something that they disagreed on. Anyway, I'm just wanted to connect that because it was something that was thrown out as a submission, and we're talking about Jamal Bowman right now.
And Nazis.
Yeah, so that's all number one. Number two.
It's my favorite way it's been said.
Nazis.
Yeah.
Is that Inglourious Basterds?
Yes.
That one? Okay. I want to tell you why.
First time he says it, he's got that big knife.
I haven't seen that in a while. I need to watch that sometime, actually.
Kill him some Nazis.
Mehdi Hasan, the reason this made an actual number for me is because of how Mehdi Hasan is portrayed and how he portrays himself. This is the guy that's on MSNBC, and he is just the moral compass for all the truth in the world, and he goes out there and busts all these myths all the time, and he's the guy who's going to tell you what's right, and he always wants to put all the proper context around things, and that's really what he's known for doing. He's really great at debating, he's really great at gotcha type situations, and making really good viral videos with people. And then he also throws out stuff like this, replying to someone who said that it's the biggest Republican advantage on the economy since 1991. And they've been polling this question since 1951. Mehdi Hasan says, the Bidenomics stuff, despite being factually undeniably true, that's that this is the greatest economy ever in the history of mankind, is still not cutting through. Americans prefer the guy who left office with the worst jobs record since Herbert Hoover. And I know that that's not, we talked about this so many times. I would have only thrown this in there because it was Mehdi Hasan who said it, who is a man who portrays himself in the way that I was just explaining. Like, this is a guy who cares about context and misinformation and the truth and dispelling myths and things like that. And so one more time again, we'll just mention that Donald Trump, who neither one of us voted for in 2 elections, Donald Trump had a great jobs record up until the point that there was a really big virus going around. And
the virus is actually really small.
It was. You couldn't even see it.
It's microscopic.
It was a tiny virus going around.
Yeah.
like the smallest virus that you'd ever seen. And
a bunch of them.
One of the parts of its DNA, or whatever you call it, it was that it shuts down economies.
Yeah.
Not just your system. It's not just your immune system that can't handle it. It's also shipping.
Jobs.
Jobs in general. Okay. And so the reason that you can look at a chart.
Non-essential jobs.
Non-essential. Yeah. You kept like Walmart and Amazon and stuff like
essential,
that. Yeah. People who are shipping, they were
very
immune
strange
also.
virus. They're still studying it.
It was really weird. The reason his job record ended up with a negative jobs created is because of all of those people who lost their jobs during the pandemic. If you go to February of 2020, the jobs record was actually pretty good. And now when you look at Biden's jobs record, which is now at 14 million jobs created, almost all of them are people who were employed before they were put out of work because of the government's response to the pandemic. And the rest is history. We all know the thing.
Now they're re-employed.
Mainly, I just can't stand Mehdi Hasan. These like pompous, just I'm better than you and I'm the only arbiter of truth out there in the world type people who then come out here and still do what he knows what he's doing. That's why it bothers me. Yeah. It's when he knows. He's not just being an idiot. And we got a video right now. And luckily for us and for everyone listening, it's a video with President Biden speaking. And he is speaking, and they're talking about Elon Musk buying Twitter. And we're talking about in the context of misinformation and people getting their news. And of course, he's super worried about people not getting the correct information as well. Let's just hear
he tried to start the ministry.
What about what Elon Musk has done to Twitter? Lowering guardrails against misinformation. Does that contribute to it?
Yeah, it does. Look, one of the things, as I said to you, when I thought I wasn't going to run, I was going to write a book about the changes taking place. And most of it's directed over the years with these fundamental changes in society by changing technology. Gutenberg printing in the printing press changed the way Europeans could talk to one another, all the way to today. Where do people get their news? They go on the internet. They go online. They go, and you have no notion whether it's true or not.
How do you know what the news is telling you is the truth?
Because they would never lie. The news wouldn't lie.
Certified stamp of truth approval.
Yeah, because they are the news, I guess. And maybe it's just because he's super old. He was probably there when the Gutenberg Bible was printed. And so that's why he goes all the way back to that.
Was that the 1540s or something like that?
I don't remember when it was. But hey, that was a big moment in history. That old pal Gutenberg, he really hooked us up.
That's when that's also when he first saw that gay couple and knew that
was love.
Love is love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same time.
Yeah.
He was in his dad's car. And no, I don't like this idea that you can only go to the news because the news has been lying to us for years. We're all sitting here post being lied into wars, but of course they want to be able to control like almost all of it. They don't like the fact that you can go on there and post something that you just saw happen, and people on X can go out there and see it. That's like the government's worst enemy.
It doesn't have to be approved.
Yeah, that's the problem. And of course, it was fine when they had guardrails protecting the misinformation because
when the administration was able to message Twitter and say, hey, take this down.
Like people saying that the vaccines might have side effects. They used to have good guardrails to keep misinformation. There were even some people that said you could get COVID even if you were vaccinated. And you could still spread it to people and you could still get it. And back when we had guardrails, Twitter would take down posts like that. Or they would get rid of people's accounts.
There were some people even suggesting that this virus was somehow manufactured in a lab.
In a lab?
In Wuhan, China, which is xenophobic.
Oh, yeah.
It's racist.
Pure racism.
And, now it's probably the leading indicator but that's coming from the news now, from the government. All those people back then, they were lying.
Well, see, the news took their time to vet the resources, their sources, and make sure that it was true. And so now they can talk about it. But can you imagine, can you imagine if we went through COVID and we didn't have things like Twitter and Facebook and all that, and it was just CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and, ABC, CBS, all that, and that's it? That's the only place we got any information.
We'd be like Australia.
We can blow through dumb bleep number 4 before we get in the weeds here. What are they responding to there, Chuck?
From Axios, it said the Biden administration announced another $9 billion in student loan forgiveness through its debt relief programs, bringing the total forgiveness to $127 billion for about 3.6 million borrowers.
Good God.
White House quoted that and said, guess what? It also grows the economy, benefits everybody, hurts nobody. Hurts no one.
Okay, so the idea they're throwing out here. Listen, here's the deal. When the government floats you some money to go to a school, and you go to the school and you pay the school, you know. When they then cancel that and you don't have to pay back the money and you get to use your money on other things, that's how you grow the economy. And what they basically mean is when the government prints money and pays for things and you don't have to pay for it, well, then that's what grows the economy. And I tend to disagree with this idea just a little bit.
Seems to be a little backwards from economics.
I think we should just print all the money. Why even worry about paying people for
Here's
stuff
the thing.
anymore?
Take the idea all the way to the end. If this works, why don't we just pay for everything?
All of it.
Yeah.
We don't need to pay for anything.
Why is it just another $9 billion? Why don't they just do another $9 trillion?
In fact, why do we even use money in the first place?
Right.
And stop using money. That would grow the economy.
Mm-hmm.
You know who thinks that that's what would grow the economy is dumb bleep number 5. How about that? Socialist Party of Great Britain. We haven't talked about them in a while. There's a picture here. It says Tesco store now puts security tags on toilet rolls as shoplifting cases continue to soar.
Is this a UK brand?
I don't know.
Andrix?
Andrix, and I've never heard of Tesco either. Anyone in the live group know what Tesco is? Anyone ever heard of this?
Yeah.
Let me know. The Socialist
Do you
Party.
use this on your dogs, or they just use a dog? I don't understand.
They do have a dog up there on the picture.
And then look, the recycle is a paw print.
What is this?
I don't.
This is just
you
for,
know. I have
Tesco is a Kroger. That's what Bailey says.
Okay.
Andrix.
I
Never heard of
have,
this.
and I had a Great Dane, and you did have to wipe his butt every time he pooped. But we used
Did you
wet
use
wipes.
Andrix?
No, we used wet wipes.
Well, you should have been using Andrix. Or were you stealing it? That's the problem. They have these tags on there where you can't steal their stuff.
Yeah, that's why we had to switch to wet wipes now. They don't put the tags on those anymore.
Andrix toilet rolls. I'm just looking this up right now because I've never heard of this brand before. It looks like they're ripping off someone's logo is what's bothering me. It looks like a different logo, like Charmin or something. Doesn't it? I don't know. Anyhow,
Well, it's quilted with an air pocket.
The Socialist Party of Great Britain says capitalism in 2023. And so let me get this right. You not being able to steal stuff from the store is what capitalism has devolved into. It's people and property owners and people who paid for it. You know, the store, they got to pay for the toilet paper when they put it up there. And if you don't
Unless
give them
they're
anything,
stealing it.
yeah. And so now they don't want people to steal their stuff anymore. Can someone get me the 411 on Andrix, please? It's really bothering me. Okay. I need to know where the company is from, where they started, and what their main markets are.
I'm sorry I brought that up.
It's really bothering me right
Probably Procter and Gamble.
No, that's not what capitalism.
I'm confused by the air pocket.
Yeah,
and it's trademarked, by the way. So no other toilet paper can have air pockets in it.
Okay.
And what does that do?
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to think of what air pockets would do for your anus.
It's an actual air pocket. I think it would just pop as you were using it. You know, like bubble wrap.
You would think.
When you use it, does it snap like bubble wrap?
Does that blow the smell away?
Listen, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we will bring everyone an episode on what is going on with the air pockets inside of Andrix's unthieveable toilet paper.
Unthieveable.
Okay, that's what we need to know.
Apparently it's popular because people are stealing.
Listen, I'm not even going to we don't have to talk anymore about this because I want to talk about shoplifting some more. Don't fall in. Let's talk about shoplifting real quick.
Great picture.
I know. This is someone getting arrested at a Walmart for shoplifting because of capitalism. And I've actually got words to say on this one. Don't worry. Here we go. This is what happens when she was getting arrested for shoplifting by a police officer.
What is racist? What
Now, I don't know if you can tell, Charlie, but her main argument is that Walmart is racist.
Now, was this spawned by any type of rhetoric?
Exactly.
That people are using online?
I think
at
so.
All?
I think so. So because she is getting arrested for shoplifting, the response is that Walmart is racist. She is black and she is getting arrested by a white police officer or security guard. Looks more like a police officer to me. I'm not sure. Her go-to is that it's because she's black, essentially, that's why she's getting arrested for this. And like what you just said, this stems from people being told, you tell a whole group of people that they're not responsible for anything, that everyone owes them something. And if you look at economics, you also tell them that all the money that corporations make is theft and
greed.
It's greed. They've got plenty of money, all of this. And so you decide you're going to go in and steal things. And when you get caught doing it, the response is, well, you're stopping me because I'm black, not because I was stealing something. And I think that's where we've made it. This is the adult equivalent of throwing a fit in Walmart whenever you don't get your toy. It's number 6. This clip did bother me because I do think that this is a symptom of all of the rhetoric that people have been told for so many years. And that's why we talk about the things that we talk about, because it leads to stuff like this. I should be able to steal from you. I am entitled to all of this. You are stealing from me by making money off of things. Also, I'm black and all of you owe me something. And so therefore this is mine and I shouldn't have to pay you for it. Mm-hmm. That's the ideology behind what's happening.
Yeah.
Not that I'm blaming people like Nina Turner or Robert Reich or whatever. You know, it's on her, Walmart is racist lady, to figure this out for herself.
Remember when crimes used to be crimes?
Okay, now we're coming up on a video that honestly should have been its own episode, because this one from the IMF about inflation should probably be its own episode. But we're going to watch it. They are explaining inflation to everyone. The International Monetary Fund wants you to know what inflation is. So let's listen.
Hi, I'm Sandila from the IMF. And throughout this series, I'm going to be answering your questions about thorny economic issues, breaking them down and giving you straight answers without all that fancy academic speak. Let's get started.
Now, I'm going to cut in for a minute. She starts off by saying, I'm going to be answering questions, giving you answers without all the fancy academic speak. And I understand that. That's what we try to do every day on the show. You know, we're way better than what we portray to people. Yeah. She's going to give you some easy answers. The problem is a lot of people believe that they're so much smarter than you, and there's no way you would ever understand what any of the causes are, any of the words that they would say. Some people could even use that potential fact, because it could be true. They could use that to then misinform you on the problems, because they're assuming that they're talking to a bunch of ignorant people. And so they undereducate or don't educate you on economics whatsoever. And then these people at the top from the IMF are the ones who are going to teach you about
dumb it down. Yeah, they're going to dumb it down for all you dummies.
There's been a lot of talk about inflation around the world. But what is it really? And why is it happening? Inflation is a broad-based increase in the price of things. For consumers like you and me, it's about a broad-based increase in the prices of things that we consume and pay for. Now, the reason that we care about inflation is that it can lower people's living standards. When prices rise faster than wages, people are effectively getting poorer. $1 that I have today is worth less than the $1 that I had last year. That makes me worse off. That's why we say that inflation is the worst tax on the poor.
All right, coming up, we will finish up this video and this dumb bleep and move on to all of the other very dumb bleeps. Remember, you can submit your own dumb bleeps by going to joingml.com and you'll be able to vote. Anytime we do these episodes, joingml.com. More of it coming up.
Free Talk Live.
Yeah, you're a loser.
Wow.
With,
so I'm a loser because I don't have health insurance? Is that all you got?
Health insurance, and you don't want to license your vehicles like the guy in Florida too?
So I'm a loser because I don't want to bend over for the state and have them molest my freedom and take my money from me. Boy, you've got a serious issue with priorities, man.
Why don't you just pay?
Does it make you feel like a winner when you get a speeding ticket? Does it make you feel like a winner when you're paying property tax?
You betcha.
You're pathetic, dude. Thanks for the call. The government loves bootlickers like Leon.
Yeah.
That's sad, man. I hope that more people out there are not like him, because people like Leon are the problem. People like Leon who just do whatever it is they're told and they feel good about it. That's sick.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is traveling to Israel on Wednesday to offer Washington's support following the Hamas attack that killed more than 1,000 Israelis. The U.S. is working with the Israeli government to secure the release of dozens of hostages who were taken into Gaza, including an estimated 20 Americans. FSN's Nick Harper reports from Washington.
The State Department says this will be a visit of solidarity and support. The Secretary, we're told, will reaffirm the US commitment to Israel, discuss measures to bolster security, and underscore Washington's unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself. Blinken is expected to discuss Israel's request for more ground-to-air missiles for its Iron Dome intercept defense, as well as more ammunition and additional cooperation on intelligence sharing. He plans to meet senior officials in Israel on Thursday and then travel on to Jordan. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
U.S. President Biden insists the U.S. has Israel's back, promising the country will get what it needs to defend itself amid the escalating crisis in the Middle East. Biden called the attack a stomach-churning, sickening atrocity on an appalling scale and a violation of every code of human morality. From Washington, FSN's Benji Heyer reports.
Joe Biden's message was crystal clear.
We stand with Israel.
In condemning the horrors unleashed over the weekend, the president vowed to support the US's ally as it retaliates against Hamas in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza, where already hundreds have died. The administration is offering hostage rescue support, says it'll replenish Israel's missile defense system, and is ready to move additional assets, calling on Congress to take urgent action to fund such measures. This is not about party or politics, Biden declared, but the security of our world. And to any actor or nation thinking about exploiting this rapidly evolving situation for their own advantage, he had for them just a single word: don't. Benji Heyer, Washington.
U.S. stocks were given a boost Tuesday as traders focused on comments from several members of the Federal Reserve. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
President of the Atlanta Federal Reserve, Raphael Bostic, gave the US markets a boost Tuesday, stating that he doesn't think further interest rate hikes are needed to cool inflation. And addressing a town hall event, Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari said he's hopeful for a soft economic landing as inflation drops but the labour market remains tight. The Dow closed up 0.4% on Tuesday, the S&P up 0.5%, and the Nasdaq up 0.6% on the heels of those comments.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
We're back, Liberty Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, going through some of the dumb bleep of the week submissions. We were in the middle of this video from the IMF explaining inflation when we had to take a break, so let's get right back into that.
The first is when there's shortages in supply or slowdowns in supply. Take COVID as an example. A lot of people were asked to stay home to avoid spreading the virus. In some cases, that led to a shutdown in ports or shipping terminals.
Would you please do this or I'll kill you?
Again, that nudged up prices. The other big bucket is on the demand side, so people demanding or wanting more goods and services than there are available. So what can governments do to ease it? Governments, through their central banks, can decrease demand by increasing interest rates. Governments can also cut spending or increase taxes, and the broad idea is that there's less money sloshing around to spend things on. Now let's think about the supply side. Governments can still do something. In some cases, governments might have special reserves to lessen the damage. Think strategic oil reserves. But not all countries have these, or they're not large enough to have an impact. The second thing governments can do in the longer term is create an environment that incentivizes businesses to produce more.
Okay, so as you go through the rest of the video, what you'll find is what's never mentioned the entire time, and this is from the International Monetary Fund, is governments just printing money out of thin air and sending it into the economy, or them just shutting down all of the production of goods and services in the economy. And so when
people were asked not to work.
Yeah, they were asked. They were asked not to work at that time. Yeah. And so the problem is, so like what Bailey just said, this video is probably being used by teachers in high school and professors in college. And that's one of the reasons that it bothers me so much.
I am shocked she called inflation a tax.
She did say tax. But when you don't pinpoint the government as the source of the inflation,
right,
then it's okay to call it a tax. Because people most of the time will just say, well, it's just corporate greed, creating inflation, price gouging, stuff like that. And that's a tax, not actual taxes that we have. And so for the International Monetary Fund to not mention when she's talking about the demand in the economy and people just wanting more of things, you just want more of stuff, to not mention like, oh, also you could double the amount of money they have.
Stimmy checks.
Yeah, and maybe they'll want to buy a bunch of stuff, or even on top of that, not just that you want to buy more stuff, it's that when you have more money, you'd be more willing to pay more money for things when you have more money in your bank account. Whereas maybe you would only pay for a 60-cent cup of coffee at the gas station when you had X amount in your bank account. Government gave you $1,500, and they're like, okay, well, I guess I'd be willing to pay more than that. I really want this coffee. I'll pay $1.50 for the coffee. I'll pay $5 maybe at Starbucks, something like that, because you have more money, and now the whole calculus is thrown off in your head. So prices can rise at that time because it's all based on the amount of money people have and what they're willing to pay for things that they want. And so when you change that amount in people's bank accounts, the numbers
artificially
change. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that's one of the dumb bleats. We have another slightly complicated one that we'll get to. And as I said at the beginning of the show, which we might have some time after this one, there's so many things that are not in this that I actually wanted to put in this episode today. But there's an RFK Jr. Clip here that we were asked about. We were asked about by someone on TikTok last week, I think. And then we got tagged on Twitter for Dumb Bleep of the Week for this too. RFK has this plan that's going to fix, housing is super expensive right now. And his plan, because interest rates are the problem with the increased cost in housing right now, his plan is to fix housing interest rates at a much lower rate, less than half of what the current rates are right now. And
they just jumped up to about 8.5%.
And so his idea, it's crazy.
Yeah.
His idea is that extra money people are paying in interest, well, when you fix it back down to 3%, which is what he wants to do, well, any of that extra money that was being paid in interest, you just won't have to pay, and the house will be the same price as it was beforehand, and you'll just save all of that money, like $1,000 a month on your house.
Demand won't change.
Demand doesn't, nothing like that. And he also pinpoints some important things in here, but let's hear from it. Okay, RFK, here we go.
Thing is probably the most important issue in terms of building wealth in poor communities. If you have a house, you can get a loan and you can build a business. If you don't have a house, you have no access to capital. 2 years ago, the average cost of a house.
What? Hold on.
What?
Okay, I get it. I get what he's saying. If you have a house, then you can get a loan for a business. He's talking about people growing businesses. So that's the only way
you
you
use
can
your
get
house
access.
as collateral.
I guess so.
Your equity as collateral.
There's no way you can get any business loans without having a house.
I just got my first house a year ago.
Yeah,
got a loan and bought a house. I've been renting since then, and I've started several businesses.
It was $215,000. Today it's $400,000. Why did the price of housing go up? Well, one, because of the inflation, because we spent $8 trillion on wars and $16 trillion on COVID, which we didn't have. So they print money, which caused the price of everything to go up. More importantly, there's three giant corporations. BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. They also own 89% of the S&P 500. They've now decided to buy.
Okay. I think RFK is probably a good dude, but I don't like it when people do stuff like this. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, he says they own 89% of the S&P 500. Now, that sounds like they own all of the S&P 500 to me. No, that's like they own stock in 89% of the companies that are included in the S&P 500.
Well, they manage money.
Yes.
For everyone.
But that's not them owning 89%.
Just take a look at your 401k, by the way. Okay. It's typically managed by one of these three companies.
We probably own a significant percentage of the S&P 500. Many of the people listening probably do.
They've now decided to buy every single family home in America. If they stay on the current trajectory, they will own 60% of the homes in this country, single family homes, by 2030. You all probably have heard of people who are about to buy a home and somebody comes in at the last minute with a cash offer and snatches it out of the market.
Right.
And it's usually an LLC with an ambiguous name. But if you trace that up, you'll find it's owned by BlackRock. And because they have a huge bank book, the cost of money and interest to them is tiny, which means they can outcompete your children. Well, your kids do not have a chance to buy that home because they can't outcompete BlackRock. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. One thing, I'm going to try to change the tax code to make it unprofitable for those companies to compete against your children for housing. Number two, I'm going to make a mortgage bill.
Which I understand. This is kind of a complicated, not exactly, but a little bit of a complicated libertarian conversation. What do we say about, you get a company like BlackRock and all these other ones that have so much more money. And they pull together, they got so many trillions of dollars. And like the house next to me just came up for sale. And the company came in and paid immediately, like upfront, cash offers on stuff,
closing
costs, all that stuff. And other people can't compete with that. And so now there's a rental house next to my house, which is basically worst case scenario. All right. Let's say that they set out to buy every single house that's available, that ever comes available on the market. And then eventually those three companies own every house. Is that something, like, do we say, is that a problem? Is it unfair that they're able to actually arbitrarily increase the price of the houses because they have so much of their own capital to use to pay for it? They're not worried about the interest rate because they have so much cash already. Is this a market
why
failure?
Why are houses so expensive?
That's a good question. You think supply could be a problem? Maybe supply is a problem. Maybe for a long time we had rates that were way too low and we're pushing people to get houses when they shouldn't. And I think all the supply constraints are a major issue. Mm-hmm. Look at tariffs are a major. We got a friend, won't say his name. The cost of building his house went up like 30% from all the Trump tariffs. That's something people don't pay attention to, and that's a supply constraint also when that happens.
To Americans at 3% interest. And I'm going to do that without raising the debt. And the way I'm going to do it, if you have a rich uncle who will co-sign your mortgage, you can get a very cheap mortgage because the bank is basing the interest rates on his credit score rather than yours. Well, I'm going to give everybody a rich uncle. I'm going to say Uncle Sam is going to co-sign this new class of mortgages and guarantee them at 3%. That will lower the cost of mortgages by $1,000 a month. And it will allow them to outcompete BlackRock. And I'm going to finance those mortgages by selling tax-free bonds on the open market. It won't be financed with federal tax dollars and contribute to this incredible debt that we have. And those will only be available to first-time home buyers who will live in that community, who will work in that community. Starting with teachers, because we need to create housing for teachers to keep the best teachers in our schools. So
not only is it going to be, they're going to be your rich uncle, then they're going to narrow it down the first-time home buyers. And they're going to narrow it down further to teachers. First-time home buying teachers that don't have a rich uncle.
They have to live and work in that community.
To live,
you can't commute.
Yeah. That's who this plan starts with, and then it's going to filter out. And then I'm sure he didn't make a phone call to the teachers union asking for support after that video came out. So basically, let me boil this down for you. He wants to take the government student loan plan and do it for houses. I'm going to fix the interest rates at a lower rate, and that's going to lower the cost for everyone. There's no way that the cost of the houses, you see, because the interest rate is a cost in buying the house. That's calculated. Like, you're a guy about to buy a house, and you see, well, this house is $500K. I got to pay an 8% interest rate on that. And so you're like, I can't really do $500K with this 8%, but I could do 400K with the 8%. That's fine. You see, so that is actually talking down the price of the houses for you. The problem that we have is up against that is people still have all of this leftover pandemic stimmy check money. And a lot of people do, not everyone, but that extra money hasn't been sucked out of the economy yet. And so people are getting in it, or they're just getting in bad deals. And we're going to see another housing collapse come up. And so that interest rate actually talks down the price of the house. It lowers the price of a house that you could afford. All right. And that happens across the whole market.
Now, if you want to sell it, you have to get it to a price where people can actually afford to buy it.
Yes. And so then you're selling the same thing, same 500K house. And someone says, well, we got a fixed interest rate here at 3%. And the guy's like, well, guess I can pay the 500K for that house. And so then the saving doesn't actually happen. You still end up paying like the same amount.
Or you could afford like a $600,000 house.
Yeah.
And so now the guy sells it for $600 instead of $500.
Exactly. And that's what actually ends up happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what ended up happening with student loans, where anyone could get a student loan. And then honestly, the interest rate on the student loan should be like 60, 70%, something like that. Yes, that would mean almost no one goes to college. And that's about right. And honestly.
And then the price of college would go way down.
Then they would charge what it should really cost to teach people something.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the cost of college has continued to go up and up and up. And so he wants to do the same thing. And the fact that some libertarians still think that it could be a good idea for him to be a libertarian, it's not as much as it was when he first came out and he was just talking about COVID and vaccines and all that stuff. It's not as much, but some people still are. This is a terrible idea. Okay, I don't remember what number.
That was 9.
That was 8.
Or sorry, 8, yes.
That was number 8. I do believe we have a number 9, and it's from some lady I've never heard of before.
Let me see if I can pronounce her name. Nina Turner.
Yeah. Lanina Turner.
Lanina.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Nina Turner. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This is a screenshot of an article. Charlie, what would you say this is?
All right. The article says, the headline, Denver experimented with giving people $1,000 a month. It reduced homelessness and increased full-time employment, a study found. To which Nina posted the screenshot and said, the solution to poverty is money. Simple.
So simple.
It's simple.
You just give people money.
It's simple. I can't believe we haven't figured this out before.
We should just print money and give it to people, and then there won't be any more poverty.
Simple.
So there's a lot of different ways we can tackle this one.
She could have written that better, by the way. The solution to poverty is simple.
Mm-hmm.
Money.
It's money.
Yeah.
You should write her tweets.
I should.
You should call her up. Send her a message over there.
You know, it must be nice to think this way, though. To walk around, not a care in the world, probably. I bet she sleeps just fine at night. Look at that smile she's got on her face.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
smug.
Just walking around being like, oh, the solution to hunger is easy. Food.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to eat something. It's like one of those friends when you're trying to tell them about a problem. And they're like, oh, just stop thinking about it.
Yeah, you should.
That's simple.
Yeah, you should
just
stop that.
Just stop thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh, you're hungry?
You should eat something.
You should eat some food.
Yeah.
That's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll just give you some food. So I went through this, by the way.
Like, oh, you're tired? You just sleep more. It's simple.
Solution to the problem.
Why are we overthinking all of this?
Are you sad? Have you tried being happy?
Right.
It's the opposite of sad.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out if you're happy, then you're not sad.
Yeah.
And so what we need is more happy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So in this study, Denver experimenting with giving people $1,000 a month. They also experimented with giving people a larger lump sum payment and then giving them like $50 a month. It reduced homelessness and increased full-time employment. Now, this is one of those test markets. So how many people did they give $1,000 to? The answer is about 160. And actually, I will just tell you some of the stuff. When they talk about homeless people, now when you imagine people who are homeless and fixing the homelessness problem, Charlie, what would you imagine? Like
are these people that are just house insecure?
They're home insecure. Yeah, that's what it is.
They're not actually homeless. They're home insecure.
By the way, they excluded from this category that these people could not have severe and unaddressed mental health or substance use needs. So no drug addicts and no one with any mental problems. And so they're not going after that category of homeless people, which is, I would argue, is a rather large part of the category of homeless people. And then experiencing homelessness as defined by the DBIP, they have an intentionally broad definition of homelessness. And so these people...
Home insecurity.
Yeah, these people could be living in a motel or a hotel. Either one. A camping ground. They could be living in a camping ground due to lack of alternative accommodations, or they could be sharing a house with a friend or a loved one due to a loss of housing or economic hardship or a similar reason. And then living in a car, a park, or a public space, abandoned buildings, stuff like that. Then you get down to more people, but they can't be on drugs and they can't have any mental problems. So did they pick a rather easy group of people to try and help? I kind of think that they did. 260 people is what they randomly assigned $1,000. They only got, I think, 154 people at the 6-month checkup for this on the $1,000 a month thing. And by the way, of the people in that group for $1,000, only 6% of them were homeless people, like living outside on the streets. Only 6% of them.
Yeah.
So like 9 people were homeless living on the street. Maybe not 9. It's not even 9. I don't know. It's 7 people, 7 people were people that were homeless living on the street. Okay. But those 7 people in that group are no longer living on the street at the 6-month checkup mark, which is where we're at right now in this current study. And about a third of the whole group found some type of a place to live, like an apartment or a house, something like that. So like 50 people that they found after 6 months of giving them $1,000, which I know immediately alarm bells went off. You can't get a place to live for $1,000. That's not possible. What are you talking about? How did a third of the group in a major metropolitan city find a place to live for $1,000 a month when they weren't living there in the first place? I guess, I don't know.
They rent in a closet?
I'm not sure where they're staying right now, because I heard you can't get anything for like less than $2,500.
And when they found a place to live, did it have to be above the homelessness standards?
I guess it can't be you can't stay at like an extended stay motel or anything. It's got to be renting a house.
Yeah.
Or an apartment. Something like that.
You couldn't move in with a friend and split rent, could you? Because that would qualify as homelessness.
Living with someone because of economic hardship qualifies as homelessness in this category. Yeah. So first off, you can attack the study and say, okay, this is a very small group of people. And it was done with a donation, I think it was a $2 million donation. And so they're testing it out with a very low amount of people. And so, of course, on a very small scale, with a $2 million donation, not taxed away from the people's paychecks that also live in the same city as you, when you give people $1,000 a month, and they're people who aren't on drugs and they don't have mental problems, turns out they could then turn around and use that $1,000 to pay for some kind of rent in an apartment, something like that. Magic. Okay. That does not, however, mean that you can do that on a large scale, because then you would run into inflation. You got to take the money from somewhere. It's not all just going to be donated. So then you're giving everyone $1,000 a month, and then everyone has $1,000 more to spend on something, and then it's the summer of 2021 all over again. Then you run back into inflation. You get UBI or whatever. And so the solution is not all that simple, but individuals, I bet if you gave someone $1,000 a month, Charlie, and they were on the street and they weren't on drugs and they didn't have any kind of mental problem going on, if you gave them $1,000, they would probably take that and not live on the street anymore. But the idea that we can do this across the entire country is really dumb.
Especially with the government.
Yes. Because then they got to take money from people, and then put it back in other people's pockets. Yeah. It's not going to work. Okay.
It's not, yeah.
There's like 30 more dumbs for today that we're going to just push off to Monday, I believe. I mean, we got stuff like, there's this clip of Lindsey Graham saying that if we pull the plug on Ukraine, that's 10 times worse than when we left Afghanistan. And that if we
there's not a war this man has not fallen in love with.
Here's an honorable mention
Have
for
you
Lindsey Graham.
asked Donald Trump, your friend, to come out and publicly support more aid to Ukraine and to push some of these skeptical members of the Republican conference?
I'll leave it up to him to what to do, but he wanted to get out of Afghanistan.
Well, Vladimir Putin has been praising him for his comments about
Russia.
Russia and
Here's what I'll
Ukraine.
say about President Trump. He did not pull the plug on Afghanistan, even though he wanted to. The biggest mistake we made since the war on terror is withdrawing from Afghanistan. To President Trump and anybody else, if we pull the plug on Ukraine, that's 10 times worse than Afghanistan. There goes Taiwan. To stop funding Ukraine is a death sentence for Taiwan. Putin will keep going. You missed all the world.
Listen, Afghanistan, leaving there was terrible. If we leave Ukraine, where we supposedly don't have any troops there or anything, that's worse than when we lost thousands of people.
10 times
in
worse.
Afghanistan. It's 10 times worse than that. And as soon as we leave Ukraine, then that means China is going to invade Taiwan.
Well, Putin's not going to stop.
Because right now, what's holding China back is our glorious success in Ukraine that we're having right now. There's no way that China...
Look at his nice flag there.
Look at that.
He's got an American Ukraine flag. You ever wanted to see what a Nazi looked like in government?
That's the new Nazi symbol right there.
There he is.
All right, so there's a great honorable mention for Lindsey Graham. There were other good things, like a thing from Sunny Hostin today, a post by Robert Reich that was really good, I saw in the group, and several more that I sent back to myself with the tag Monday that I'm now going to type in Monday in my email and pull those things up for Monday. So let's get through Let's get through the votes. Let's say what the things were. Jamal Bowman and the fire alarm gate is number 1. Number 2, Mehdi Hassan and the jobs. Number 3, Biden and Musk misinformation. Sorry. Number 4, the White House and canceling debt grows the economy. Number 5, Socialist Party of Great Britain says this is capitalism in 2023. 6, Walmart is racist. I don't know if we allowed the video to play long enough for her to say that, but Walmart is racist, lady. Number 7, IMF on inflation. Number 8, RFK on housing. Number 9, Nina Turner on poverty. And Nina Turner has announced her newest venture, and we might talk about that on Monday as well.
That'll be nice.
She started her own foundation, Charlotte, her own charitable organization.
Yeah.
So,
all right, y'all, get your votes in. While you're voting, I'm going to tell you not to do anything. Like I have all week. I'm sticking to the plan. I want you to not share the show. Don't leave us a rating and review. Don't visit our websites, joingml.com, or be part of the Fed Haters Club.
In the group.
I don't want you to do anything. I didn't see it. I'm looking at I don't want you to do anything. So
don't do it. We want you to sit at home and not do anything this weekend.
Yes.
Okay. If you could somehow do that for us.
Don't even vote.
No, don't vote.
Yeah, don't even vote. And that's all I got to say about that.
That's all you have to say. Let's get some votes. I'm going to call it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.5, 1, 0. Oh,
Lanina Turner.
Lanina
coming in with the win.
Great job.
Won
Nina.
a lot this year.
Man, that's unfair.
So proud of her.
It's unfair. She's got dumb bleep inequality right now.
Well, she's got to win something.
Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next Tuesday night. Liberty at night.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims.